All right, family. We apologize. Technical difficulties. As you can hear, my mic wasn't working, but we're back. We're back in full effect. This is Debate Talk for you, family. I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and today's show is entitled Ask a Book Author. The title of the book is Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelites. Once again, Ask a Book Author is the title of the show. Name of the book that we're going to be discussing is Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelites. And my special guest is Vocab Malone. He's going to be calling in very soon. If you're out there, brother, you got to press number one. I think I see you, brother. I see you. I'm bringing you in a minute. And actually, I just got access to the book about maybe 2 hours ago, so I didn't get a chance to read the book in its entirety. But hopefully in the future I can do another show where after I read the book, I can, get more into it and ask the questions, that, once you read the book, once you get some understanding, you can pretty much break some details down actually from the book. But I appreciate Vocab for sending the book. Shout out to you, brother. Shout out to Israel Doctrine, who had the first interview in regards to this particular book, Israel Doctrine. If you go check out his channel, Israel Doctrine, you can see that first interview with him and Vocab Malone. So this possibly might be the second. But this time, the audience has access and they can call in with their questions and their comments. That's what the Debate Talk View is all about. It's all about the audience out there. So for those people out there that actually purchased the book, they actually, got some questions after reading the book, the number to call in is 319-527-6239. Feel free to call in. Like I said, I just got the book, the PDF version of the book, maybe 2 hours ago, so I didn't get a chance to really read it. And but if you have and you want to ask any questions, or if you have, if you didn't get the book and you still have some questions that you might want to ask, feel free to call in. The Debate Talk View is all about the audience, getting answers to their questions. But in the meanwhile, let me introduce my special guest. I believe this is Vocab 706. Are you there?
No, this is me. It's you hooping out. I'm waiting on Vocab.
Oh, you hooping out. What's going on, man? How you feeling, my brother?
I'm chilling, man. I'm just ready to see if he.
So you got a question for the brother. So you got a question for the brother, pretty much.
Oh yeah, I got a question for that brother. Yeah, he been kind of I ain't gonna say dodge me. He been too busy for me way too long. It's time to get him up on here.
So how do I sound? Do I sound a little low? Because my microphone been acting up. How do I sound?
No, actually, you sound good.
Okay. All right. Cool. So what I'll do, I'll put you on hold, brother. I'm gonna put you on hold, and once the brother call in, we get him in a conversation. Like I said, Vocab, if you're out there, brother, you're gonna have to press number one. And we'll add you in the conversation. In the meanwhile, for those of you again that got any questions, just dial that number 319-527-6239. Press number 1, and that'll let me know that you'll have a question for Vocab Malone. I see a lot of people on social media. Been waiting for this particular show. Some people leave left some comments saying that they're going to definitely call in and ask their questions. So again, this is your chance, family. This is your opportunity to call in and ask your question. Like I said, family, I apologize. I didn't really get a chance to read the book. I just received it about maybe 2 hours ago. But hold on for 1 second. Let me just look on the switchboard and see if I can try to find Vocab. Let me see. All right, so in the meanwhile, I'm trying to find Vocab on the background, guys. I'm going to have to ask you guys to stand by once again. And make sure you guys spread this, though. Spread the show on social media. If you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, let people know that Debate Talk for you is live and on the air. And they can dial that number. Put it on speed dial, 319-527-6239. So I'm going to try to reach out to Vocab Malone in the background and see what's going on. And hold on, let me see something. Okay. Okay, he is here. I see him. He is here. All right, so let's introduce the special guest. He's been on the show before, debated. As a matter of fact, he has a debate tomorrow, 2-on-2, versus the Shut 'Em Down crew. So Shut 'Em Down crew, and he has a partner that he selected. And of course, we're gonna have a debate tomorrow, team debate tomorrow. I'll give you guys the details on that, or you can look on the schedule. But without further ado, let's bring in my special guest. This is my brother, Vocab Malone. Welcome to the show. Yeah. Welcome to the
All right,
show,
no
Vocab.
doubt. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you, man, and I apologize. I had some microphone issues as well at the beginning. I couldn't get the show started. It took like 11 minutes for me to get it started, but we're here, and, we're going to get this thing cracking. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. For those who don't know who you are, they hear you for the first time, or they just purchased the book, but they're not aware of your background, I'll give them a little brief background.
No doubt. I am what is called a Christian apologist. This is not a job or anything. I have a normal day job. But a Christian apologist is not a denomination either. That's a different thing. It's none of those things. A Christian apologist is somebody who would claim the name of Christ. They would say, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ first. And then secondly, they would want to heed the command found in 1 Peter 3:15, which says, always be ready to give an apologia or a defense or a reason for the hope that lies inside of you to anyone who asks, and to do so with gentleness and respect. Some translations will say reverence. And so the idea there is that you believe it's true that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. You believe that the gospel according to Jesus Christ is true and the only means for salvation. And when something is distinctly against that, you try to have reasons why you believe what you believe and not believe the other thing. And so that's kind of my main, I guess people will call me a Christian apologist. And then I've done a lot of other areas, Islam, Roman Catholicism in the past, a lot of stuff. I still do stuff with atheism. Some of you guys can see that on my Facebook actually this week. But lately I've been mixing it up primarily with One Westers, and I do so with the crew. Shout out to Shield Squad Apologetics crew. Those are my people, and we just do it together. And it's not about hate. It really isn't. I know some people think it is. It really is about love, and the love for Christ comes first. Doesn't mean we always do it perfect. We don't. But we think it's important for somebody to be mixing it up in this arena and basically give a different perspective than what's been heard, in the decades past. And so now there's a better interaction and dialogue. And so the book is really just part of that, Sal. The book is just an introduction to people who don't know, especially what One West is. Now, it has some general introduction to Hebrew Israelism in general, but specifically focuses on One West, although there's a little bit of compare and contrast. So it's just a primer, a survey, a 101, an introduction for those who don't know, especially those who would say, hey, I'm a Christian, I want to know about this. So I'm glad to be on to be able to talk about it, and I know people are going to have a lot of questions, and I'm down to engage.
All right. Once again, we appreciate you coming on the platform. For those just joining in, I see we have more and more people calling into the show. Today's show is entitled Ask a Book Author, Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelite is the book title. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Like I mentioned, I just received the book. I didn't get a chance to read it, but for those of you that have read it, make sure you call in and ask your questions. Or if you're just curious and you have questions before you want to check the book out, you can do so as well. And make sure you call in. I'm reading the table of content. Let me just read some of the table of content for those people out there that listen to the show that might be thinking about what this book contains. Well, before we do that, how has the book been received? How has the book been doing so far?
Well, I'm a first-time author, so I'm learning as I go. And I encourage everybody out there, whatever your perspective is, if you feel it's something that, has been placed on your heart, if you feel you got something to offer, something to add, put it in a book, write it down, and just see what happens. Just see, it's a learning process, but it helps you formulate your thoughts more clearly. It gives you a chance to have better interaction with people as they read what you're writing. So I just encourage everybody. Basically, in 2017, anybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to sign a major deal anymore. We could just save some money and get to it. So I encourage everybody, listen, get to it. If you got something to offer, put it out. So first-time author, and with that being said, and just kind of being independent, the book has been received well simply because there's nothing else like it. Now, that's going to change one day. There will be more books like this. But simply because it's the first, people are kind of clamoring for it as a resource. But I'm still an independent author without any major push, and also even though to us on Debate Talk for You platform, we understand that these issues are very important, but I think we all realize within the broader frame of society, half the stuff we talk about, they don't care about. Now, I'm not saying it's not important. Otherwise, I wouldn't spend my time on it. It is important. But, go speak to a local high school class and just watch their eyes glaze over. I'm just saying that this ain't some, field where it's, going to be in Barnes & Noble or whatever next week. Nonetheless, it's important. So Christians have appreciated it. Some Christians don't like the title, which I understand. Okay. Now, as far as the Hebrew Israelite community goes, Sal, no one that I know of has really read it yet. So I've only heard negative reactions about just the idea of a book existing. Some people are upset about the title. Other people have looked at some of the sample pages and made some comments. The only people I know that have really done that I'm aware of are G. Checker and Israel Doctrine. And so I've appreciated what they've had to say, and they're limited in action. But I'd like to see more because what's out there. I already know it's going to get criticized, and I actually welcome the criticism. I want to hear what people have to say about it. So far so good, but we're in the beginning stages. Like next week, probably get a little more distribution. I'll make an announcement, and I'm going to be coming out with these videos that go along with the book. It's just me talking about the chapters, kind of like a behind-the-scenes look at each chapter. So there's still some materials coming out to supplement it, but you can read some of the book online for free at lionhousepub.com//vocab-Malone. I believe that's the address, lionhousepub.com/vocab-Malone, and you can see about 30 pages. So I want the information out there, whether somebody gets it or not. I want the information out there, and I want to mix it up and see what the people have to say back.
All right, family. Once again, we're opening the phone lines real soon. I just want to read some of the chapters, and it has 7 chapters in this book I'm seeing here. I just want to read, I guess, from 1 to 7, what some of the chapters are. Chapter 1, it says, Engaging One West Hebrew Israelism. Chapter 2 of the book, What is One West? Basic History. Chapter 3, What is One West? Basic Beliefs. Chapter 4, Deuteronomy 28 and Kendrick Lamar. Chapter 5, Relevant Biblical Passages. Matter of fact, we can break some of them things down. Matter of fact, let's go to the Kendrick Lamar one, Deuteronomy 28 and Kendrick Lamar. Give us a brief, insight on that particular chapter. That. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna run downstairs because I thought I had a copy right up here, but I'm running down. No, I got it. I'm just running downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So grab it real quick.
Yeah, let's read the rest then. It's only 7, so we read the rest. Chapter 5, Relevant Biblical Passages. Chapter 6, Resources to Study the Hebrew Israelism. And Chapter 7, the last chapter, is Hebrew Israelite Book Survey Conclusion. So it's 7 chapters, of the book. And like I said, for those people that read the book, make sure you call in. If you want to hear from those people that read the book, and again, the phone lines are open to anybody to call in. Anybody can call in, and call in via phone or Skype, 319-527-6239. But make sure you press 1. I see a lot of people standing by checking out the show via phone and via Skype. We appreciate the audience out there that's tuning in. We're going to open up the phone lines in a few minutes. We just want to hear some stuff from Vocab Malone. But again, Vocab, yeah.
All right, cool, yeah. So what I do in that chapter is talk specifically about some of the songs off of Kendrick Lamar's last album, Damn. And they're specifically relevant in a number of ways. Number one, his theology was influenced by IUIC specifically. And if anybody wants to know about that, I actually have a beginning quote in the chapter, and it says this, and here's what's wild. This is from the pages of Rolling Stone. Who would have thought Rolling Stone would be asking one of the most well-known MCs of our day about Hebrew Israelism? But here it is, quote, Your cousin Carl is a member of the Hebrew Israelites. How much of his theology have you embraced? Kendrick, everything that I say on that record is from his perspective. It was taking his perspective on the world and life as a people and putting it to where people can listen to it, whether you agree or don't agree. Rolling Stone. So what's your idea about the idea that black people are cursed by God as per Deuteronomy? Kendrick, that is truth. There's so many different ways to interpret it, but it's definitely truth when you're talking about unity in our community and some of the things we have no control over. That was in the August issue. So when you look at specific songs on that record, the theology of Hebrew Israelism, specifically influenced again by IUIC, shows up. It shows up in the album title, Damn. The idea is we're damned by God, and that's because we haven't been keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments, and that's exactly what Kendrick says, quote, Deuteronomy say that we'd all be cursed. And cousin Carl Duckworth also says that, who's down there as part of IUIC Jacksonville, at least last I knew. So I get into some of the songs where some of the lyrics are very clear, you know, about Hebrew Israelism ideas. And then because Deuteronomy 28 plays a key role in the theology right there, I mean, it shows up in that line I just read, Deuteronomy say that we'd all be cursed, specifically Kendrick says that. Then I go a little bit into Deuteronomy 28 from there for about 2.5 pages. So this book is not designed to be some kind of all-out refutation of everything that I don't agree with or something like that in Hebrew Israelism. That is not what it is. It's really an introduction. But I do some interaction. And so on page 71 and 72, I have 13 questions for folks who believe that the transatlantic slave trade has a relative equivalency to being an Israelite, meaning that if your ancestors were kidnapped in the transatlantic slave trade, then it stands to reason that you're fulfilling Deuteronomy 28:68 or something along those lines. I have some questions for folks who adopt that thesis as a proper interpretation, as well as some other things about the background of the chapter to understand what's really happening in Deuteronomy 28. And tomorrow we're going to be debating Shut 'em Down crew, me and Adam Coleman, part of Shield Squad. So we're going to get more into this Deuteronomy 28 because they want to know who on earth best fulfills the conditions of Deuteronomy 28. So we'll talk more about it tomorrow as well. So that's that chapter. And the chapters, for the most part, are relatively short. So I think that chapter's like 7 or 8 pages. You know what I mean? Any person can read this book. I designed it where any person of any background really should be able to get through most of it without feeling overwhelmed.
All right, so without further ado, let's just go to the phone lines, and in the meanwhile, in the background, while I go to the phone lines, of course, I'm going to be doing some advertising on social media to get more traffic. We do have a lot of people already, though, that's listening to the show right now, but of course, we love the listening audience out there. The number is 319-527-6239. Let's go to the audience out there. If you're new to the show, one of the rules we have, there's no foul language, y'all. Got to keep it clean. Got to keep it professional once you call in. All right, so let's go to the phone lines. What about now? Let's go to 706-505. You're live on air.
Yo, what's up, Showtime Style? This is your hooping on. What's going on, Vocab?
Hey, how you doing? Good to hear you, man.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. Okay, Vocab, I haven't read your book yet, so, you know what I'm saying, there's nothing I can say. I have some curiosities, though. Before I say that, I'm going to tell you from a perspective of how some of the people see it. And it kind of questions me about your book, too, because in some ways it seems like you just used, or it looks like, I'm not saying you did, it looks like you used black folks, like the Hebrew Israelites, to make money off of them. That's what it looks like. I'm not saying that that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Only the man upstairs knows your true heart, your true motives. But it just looked like you just was using us to make money. And so many people have done our people like that over the years. Jews have done that in the music business and in entertainment, have always used our people and got rich off our people and left our people poor. So that's how some people are looking at it. And I might be looking at it like that a little bit. It makes me somewhat curious. So only time will tell you true motives, but I do have some questions for you concerning the book after I make the statement. So this is my question. In your book, when you talk about the One West Hebrew Israelites and how they're talking about we are the chosen people of Israel, do you say that they're lying in a book, or are you saying in your book that that's impossible? Or do you acknowledge in your book that there are some Israelites who came over on the slave trade?
I don't say that anybody who says that says they're lying. I mean, I never say that.
Did you say you don't believe?
Yeah, I definitely say that. I could read a quote where I say this is exactly what I believe is true about it. There are no compelling reasons to believe that most self-identified Hebrew Israelites are truly Hebrew or Israelite, ethnically, nationally, or religiously. So I do think I do not think there's compelling reasons to buy into the thesis. And what I hope happens is that at a certain point, the community recognizes that they will not be able to get away with forever saying to anybody who disagrees with them that they're racist or hateful. At some point, they're going to have to actually legitimately engage and demonstrate. Now, I think they think they're doing that, but what I'm saying is, when I mix it up with atheists and Muslims, they have some top-notch apologists, and they know how to bring evidence, even if I disagree with their claims. I'm not quite seeing the same level of high-caliber apologetics Hebrew Israelite side. Now, I think it can happen, but it's not going to work just to deflect to say, hey, you got bad motives, so I don't really got to answer you. You know the truth. Because so far we get some of that. Or, I'm not saying you do this, but other people just to curse you out, stuff like that. That's not really going to get very far, because the fact of the matter is this, and this is not really necessarily just to you, to anyone listening, these beliefs are being criticized and scrutinized. And unless you give people a compelling reason to believe them, they're not going to just keep on buying in, because we got to really do the work and see what's really going on. So I don't think there's compelling reasons to buy the transatlantic slave equivalency thesis. I don't think there's good reasons to buy into the Deuteronomy 28 interpretation. I don't think there's good reasons to abide by the hermeneutic that a lot of one-Westers and Hebrew Israelites in general use. I think there's some real problem issues with the whole schematic.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then, because if you're going to tell people who you believe they are not, you need to know who they are and let them know. So this is my question, because I've heard one of your members say that you do DNA studies and this and that. So can you tell me? Yeah, you believe in DNA, don't you? Because one of your members.
Yeah, but I don't personally do DNA studies though. I'm listening.
Let's see. So what is name me the 11 Middle Eastern Tablet groups. Do you know them?
Oh no. I don't.
Okay,
I don't include it.
Okay, hold on.
I don't include anything about DNA in the book.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna let you know what these 11 haplogroups are. They're haplogroup J, haplogroup E, haplogroup R, haplogroup L, haplogroup C, haplogroup I, haplogroup K, haplogroup N, haplogroup Q, haplogroup T. Okay, so if you don't know the Middle Eastern haplogroups, it's like ironic. How can you tell somebody that they're not Middle Eastern? My second question would be this: what is the haplogroups that the Negroes had on the slave ships? They had 5 haplogroup types. What are the 5 haplogroups that they had?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I got books on this, but
okay. So I'm gonna let you know what they are, because 4 of them are Israelite haplogroups, and only one of them is a Hamitic haplogroup. It's the black folks who came on these slave ships had haplogroup J, haplogroup E, haplogroup R, and haplogroup I, and the Hamitic haplogroup that had is A. Now, I've talked with Africans and I've talked with Arab people. They seem to know more about who we are than we do. If I listen to and I work with Africans, and they let us know that 9 out of the 10 people who came on the slave ships were Hebrews. So that means
wait, no. Hold up. So you've been going a while, and you're kind of just naming off numbers. You're not actually proving anything. Who is this person that has knowledge in his background that is claiming that 9 of 10 of slaves who came over the United States of America are Hebrew? Who said that?
African.
Who is the?
I've talked to
what African? What African?
I'm letting you know.
Wait, no. What, brother? What African said this, and what's his authority to say? Who is this African?
I talked to an African by the name of Abibi. He is from Kush. I talked to
how does he know? So how does he have access to this information that no geneticists agree with?
Okay, hold on, listen. How do you have access? Because they have tradition. They have oral traditions that they have given these people. Hold on. Let me finish.
One at a time.
Let me finish. They have oral traditions that they pass down, that they let them know about us in the slave trade. Also, I talked to an Arab woman who her father had told her that we are the Israelite people and the reason why they did what they did in the slave trade. So I talked to other communities and other nations.
Let's do this. So Sephardic Jews have oral traditions that they're the true people of Israel. And their fathers and grandfathers say this to each other. So if you want to use that type of argumentation because they have some oral tradition, if that's what you're going to bring to the table, then how are you going to discount the claims of the Sephardic Jews? This is not good argumentation. Furthermore, the amazing irony of this is that you have all these folks nowadays running around saying they're Hebrews who don't know Hebrew, have never in their history had access to Torah, and it's not until sometimes you see European incursion when you see sometimes the first appearance, especially on the Ivory Coast, of Torah. And so these are problems. You can't say, I talk to Africans and they tell me that 9 out of 10 people these modern-day Africans were not there in the 1600s, so I'm not even understanding how they would have relevant access to know that 9 out of 10 Africans who came over and were Israelite. And the thing is, I may not have all the access information at the top of my head, but I do have resources to real books or real books that are good resources on this, such as Slavery and African Ethnicities in the Americas, Restoring the Links. This is a really good book by Gwendolyn Hall that gets into the specific ethnicities of different folks who came over. Another great one is the Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade on Yale Press by Eltis and Richardson. So I can get into this stuff, but whenever I hear Hebrews like talking about it, I'm real sketchy because they say stuff like what you just said. They say, well, their father told them this and they have oral traditions. But I want to ask you, if that's how you prove it, then how do you disprove the Sephardic Jews who have that plus a lot more? They have the oral traditions. So how come you don't believe that Sephardic Jews are sons of Abraham?
See, you're making a wrong distinction, my brother. I never said that I don't believe in Sephardic Jews. You could ask Jikhan. I believe that the Sephardic are Yehudis. I believe the Yemenites are Yehudis. I believe that the Yehudis or the nation is scattered out abroad. But like I gave you scientific proof about haplogroups. I gave you that the Negroes, and you can do your research. The Negroes, African Americans, have haplogroup J, E, haplogroup R, haplogroup I, and these are Middle Eastern haplogroups. So how do these folks who have Middle Eastern haplogroups, how do they get from the Middle East to West Africa and from West Africa over to the Americas? It came to the slave trade.
Your claim is that J, E, I, and R are all Semitic haplogroups. That's what you're saying? And are you saying
J, E, R, I? Yes, they are Semitic haplogroups.
Okay. Now, are you saying that Africans have these haplogroups, modern-day Africans, or are you saying that folks in the Americas have these haplogroups present in their body?
African Americans have haplogroups J, E, R, and I. You also have some Western Africans in the West Africans who have the same haplogroups. Most Hamitic Africans have haplogroup A. Very few African Americans here in America have haplogroup A, is what I'm telling you. So majority of the people who came on our slave ships have haplogroups that goes back to the Middle East. Very few, and you can do your research. Do your research on these haplogroups that I'm calling out. Very few African Americans who came abroad, who came across on the slave trade, have haplogroup A. Haplogroup A is a Hamitic haplogroup. So if you're going to sit up here, can you hear me? So if you're going to sit up here and tell people who they're not, then you need to tell those people who they are. If you don't know who they are, then there's nothing you can say. Because I guarantee you, if I ask you 2 questions, you can't even answer it.
Oh, see, so the thing is that I'm looking at this right now, and this J, see, this is what I mean. Like, even when you don't know information, all you got to do is look it up and test your guys' claims. This J haplogroup is mainly in northeastern Africa. It's mainly where people from the Middle East have made incursions into Africa. So J is mainly concentrated on Algerians, especially the Copts, and the Egyptians, and other places like the Berbers. Like, it's not on the west coast of Africa. It's not even really down there. It's mainly in the northeast. So, see, I don't understand, like, why you would say that, and then we look up J and see where it's from. And, yeah, it's from the Middle East, at least some of it originally, but then when it shows up in Africa, it shows up in the northeast part of Africa from where slaves did not generally come, number one. Number two, it's clear that that's where the Muslim invasions and incursions were, and that's why it's there. Now, I'm sure if I did more research on all those groups you just named, they would all be shown to be a house of cards, because what's your response to what I just said about Jay? Because it seems like you're kind of sell people a bill of goods, because when I look it up, it's in the Northeast, and it's not on the West Coast. Now, how do you deal with that?
Okay, this is how I deal with it. Why do I know black folks who have this J. Habla group that was snatched from West Africa? So you're telling me that there are no African Americans with this J. Habla group that came over on the slave trade, when I can show you that there are. There are J. Habla group people who came from the slave trade that was snatched from West Africa. So how do you respond to that?
All right, so I'm opening up the atlas of the transatlantic slave trade, and I'm looking at all the different places where slaves are brought from. We got percentages and everything, and we also have where they ended up. And I'm looking for the place where you have a heavy percentage, or actually a percentage at all, from the northeast part of Africa. Maybe it's there. Right now I don't see it anywhere in here. But the thing is, you can't just say, oh, well, they came from there and now they have it. You've got to demonstrate the claim, because the claim you just made was kind of shady. Like you're saying, well, Africans have it. Well, it's true. Some Africans have this J group, but it's in the northeast part of Africa. So it's irrelevant to the discussion we're having, which is, are people who came over on the transatlantic slave trade, do they equal Israelites because of the journey they made? The answer is no. And in your response, I mean, if you want me to look all these up while we're on the phone, I could. And my guess is that they're also going to fall down. And that's why no geneticists really agree with what you're saying. The only group of people that we can go over there and see, and it's clear and obvious, besides the Ethiopians, who seem to be a mixed bag when you're strictly talking about DNA, and this is definitely off the subject of the book, since I don't even include DNA work in the book, because you can do this alone with the biblical text to show that the Hebrew Israelite interpretation is wrong. But if we want to do that, the only one anyone really gives credence to are the Limba, and the Limba are from South Africa and Zimbabwe. So I have no problem, and I don't think anybody should have any problem with saying, look, here are sons or descendants of Abraham who live in Africa and look like the Africans around them by and large. That is not a problem at all. And then when it gets tested by their oral history, their tradition, their culture, plus their genetics, it's like, okay, there's some good evidence to this. There's no reason to deny the Limba what they say about themselves, because there's evidence to it. The irony of the Limba is, by and large, they're Christians. As a religious group, most of the Limba in South Africa and Zimbabwe practice a form of Christianity. That's the irony of it all. They have the goods, but they don't even want to live the Hebrew Israelite way.
All right, fellas, we got a lot of people standing by, y'all. We gotta get some more of these callers. Again, today's show is entitled "Ask a Book Author: Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelites." You know that number, 319-527-6239. If you read the book, definitely call in. But if you haven't read the book and you still got questions, feel free to call in as well. Again, that number to call in is 319-527-6239. Once you call in, you gotta press number 1, and that'll let me know that you got a question for Vocab Malone. Let's go to the next caller. We have a lot of people standing by, so let's go to these calls. Let's go to 321-327. You're live in air.
Yeah, good afternoon. Or good evening, Brother Sal. Showtime. What's going on? This is Amuna.
Hey, what's happening?
Calling in to ask the guests a few questions. Just to start off, you've come into the community and you've said a lot of things, and I just want to rewind a little bit, because firstly, I want to ask you: are you a Christian?
Yes, I am.
By what authority?
By Romans 10:9 and 10. If anyone believes in their heart and by Romans 10:9 and 10. So I believe the Bible is God's word, and so when it tells me something, I trust what it says. And that's a great question, by the way. So when I look at Romans 10:9, it says, if I confess with my mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and believe in my heart that God has raised him from the dead, I will be saved. And so this is something I have done. And so therefore, by that scripture, I hold on to the promise that I am saved.
So by your confession, but what you profess with your mouth, you use that authority to deem yourself a Christian?
No. I don't use my authority. See, there's a little bit of a switch. I understand how that might happen, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying by the authority of God's word. What I say is not binding, and I can be wrong, obviously, just like any human. But if I read something in God's Word, which is plain and clear on the big important things, and it tells me a promise, I can take that promise to the bank. And so I can bank my life on it, in fact. So not by my authority, but by the authority of God's Word itself. I don't need the Catholic Church to tell me, you know what I'm saying? I don't need anything else. I just need God's Word, and I trust God's Word.
Okay, so you have the right to do so, to be able to go into the Word and trust the Word and apply it to yourself and take it on that value and say, this is what I am. My question is, when the other brother was speaking and you said, not physically, not by genealogy, not spiritually, that the people who are saying they're Hebrew, who's deeming them un-Hebrew, you? Or do they have the same ability that you have?
Yeah, well, there's two things. One is saying you're an Israelite is a genetic claim in the way that Hebrew Israelites mean it. So there is a difference. Just like, I don't mean to be crass, but you don't think Bruce Jenner is actually a female, do you? I don't think you do. He's not really Caitlyn. Well, just because he says he is something about himself, it doesn't actually make it so. So that has to do with the physical way God has made you. We should accept the way God has made us physically and be glad about it. That's different, though, than saying I am a disciple of Christ. And not only that, I don't know if I misspoke, but it's definitely not in the book. I never would, and I never had said that it's not true spiritually, because certainly it is true spiritually. You said it in this conversation.
You actually just said it in this conversation.
No, I did not say that, because I believe that if you name the name of Christ, you are a spiritual son and daughter of Abraham. So I've never said that.
Okay, we'll go on to another question. When you appeared on Apologia Radio like last year, and at the time you were in school, correct? You were going for, I believe it was your doctorate?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. At that time, you proposed something. Is this book that proposal?
No, it's actually kind of sad in a way. But it's good, too. It's just the facts of life. So I've had to put my student status on hold. So I'm still in the program, but I have yet to turn in Chapter 1 because the apologetic task, I guess, if you could say, meaning what people are asking me to do and what seems to be necessary, takes up so much time that I had to get with my advisors, get with my the people over my project, and ask them basically for an extension. So I'm not doing the work on that. This book came out of a separate thing. This book would not be acceptable for graduate level work. This book is not designed for the professors to read. They wouldn't accept this as a doctoral project.
Okay.
So no, this is not it. This is something separate that grew out of it that honestly I never expected to happen. I need to get back to the project though. I need to complete it, but it's just there's other pressing matters.
And I have just two more questions, very short. So the title of that book, just for everybody, because the transparency is very important, right? And so the title of that, the initial proposal was the proposal to counter Black Hebrew Israelites. Is that correct?
Well, if you're talking about my doctoral project, the initial proposal is to rebuff the incursions upon churches in the context in which they're present. So not just the city, but sort of a focus on city churches that are being affected, city churches, city ministries that are being affected by an incursion of Hebrew Israelism into where they are. So that was the main thing, to give people, mainly pastors, tools to be able to understand what it is they're dealing with. Because most pastors, unfortunately, are not what we might want to call woke in a lot of ways, and they're not really aware of what's going on around them, and they're not really taking this thing seriously, and it's creating some problems for the young folks in their congregation. So I would just want to hand them some tools. But the project is not done. But that was the initial goal of the project, yes. This is somewhat different than that, though, the book.
Okay.
It's different.
And lastly, sometimes I've heard you speak in jestingly or jokingly, or however it is, that, these Hebrew Israelites, they have more than one name, and, there's not really their real name. Is Vocab Malone your real name?
I've never said that. I don't know what's going on exactly, but
no,
this is
the reason I'm asking is because the very same things that you are taking away, you're taking away someone else's right, You're taking somebody else's choice at the same time while you are using your right and your choice to do what it is you do. So if someone comes and says, hey, you say, my name is Vocab Malone, and I'm asking, you wrote the book under Vocab Malone, you're doing these conversations under Vocab Malone, and at no point is anyone saying, is Vocab Malone your real name? Are you trying to deceive the system? Are you trying to X, Y? You understand what I'm saying? But the way you approach Hebrew Israelites,
No.
and I'm not saying that the conversation doesn't need to be had, but the way in which you're doing it is to say that I have a right and you do not. And just watching the way you have gone, one second and I'll give you the mic. Watching the conversations that have happened over time, this is what someone will say, okay, what are you really up to? What is the conversation? What are you looking for? Do you help to, empower the pastors to, come against the Hebrew Israelites? Like, what exactly do you want to happen at the end of this? Do you want people to go back into Christianity? You want them to go back into the church? You want them to bow down to the cross? Exactly what do you want to happen? What do you hope will come about with all your work that you're putting in? Actually putting away your doctorate, I mean, that's a huge thing. To put that to the side for this, what do you want to come about? And I'll relinquish the mic.
I appreciate the questions, but the one issue with the last thing you said is I never made fun of anybody for having a name that was different than their birth name. I never, like, for example, I know Tahar's name is Vernon Brown, but I think I've only mentioned that one time in any kind of context. Like, I call him by what he wants to go by, Tahar. I've never really done that, so I'm not just not really sure where you got that. Just like I never said that a person could not be a spiritual son or daughter of Abraham. I mean, that's biblical. That's Galatians 3. Of course they can. But I don't really agree that I'm doing what you said, but I guess I would understand, the problem if I thought what you thought about it. But let me just answer the one part you're saying, what do I hope to accomplish about this? In the beginning of the conversation, you said, do you believe you're a Christian? By what authority? I mentioned Romans 10:9 and 10, where I said that, God's word has told us that if we believe in our heart and confess with our mouth these facts about Christ, that he has been risen from the dead. And that's one verse, but there's many other verses like that to show it has to do with the recognition of sin. It has to do with the recognition of who God is. It has to do with the recognition of who Christ is. And when you add that together, it's something called repentance, and that's where we drop our own will and we come to him and we pick up his will. And how do we know that? By the pages of Scripture. And so the charge that I have against Hebrew Israelism is that it is not something that comes out of the pages of Scripture. Certainly, it comes out of someone reading Scripture and then interpreting Scriptures in an inappropriate manner. I don't actually think it's really derived from Scripture ultimately, though. I think it's more derived from other philosophical, theological considerations before the person comes to the text. But it doesn't flow from the Bible, just like the religion of the Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't actually flow from the Bible. It's actually a perversion of Scripture. So
I'm sorry. I said I was going to relinquish the mic. I didn't mean to cut you. You said that adhering to the Torah doesn't come from the Bible? Or Hebrew Israelism, as you termed it?
Yeah. What people believe when they adopt this idea that they're a Hebrew Israelite, it's not the ethnic claim that's the problem. What's the problem are all the theological claims that always go with it. So Christ is not God. And I know that you may not hold to the New Testament, for example, but the ones who do hold to the New Testament, they also denigrate Christ. They turn him into a created being. You also have a situation where the Holy Spirit is denigrated. He's no longer personal. So on issue after issue, and the big issue related to all of that is that all of a sudden it seems like people are relying on their own merit to gain in favor with God. Now, I'm not saying that they don't say God is gracious. Every religion has a mixture. Christianity, though, says grace alone, faith alone. And I see that being abandoned when people adopt the idea of Hebrew Israelite theology. They all of a sudden say, unless you have these fringes on, you're not spiritual. Unless you trim your beard the right way or don't trim it at all and have a beard, you cannot get into the kingdom. Israel doctrine, whom I respect and have good conversations with, says that if you don't have circumcision of the flesh, you cannot enter the kingdom of the heavens. That's a problem.
And just for what it says, does it say that? Does the Torah lay out the things that they are saying should be done? Is that there, or did they write it into the text?
I believe that those folks that I mentioned that say those things, I don't think they're properly interpreting Scripture, so I don't think those things actually are said. So that's
so you don't
the problem.
You don't think those things are in the text? Like, okay, for instance, and then I'm gonna keep it silly. I'm gonna keep it simple, and then so. For instance, the laws of clean and unclean. In your estimation, what you're bringing to the people is to say, in Vocab Malone's world, eating the flesh of the pig is okay because you have grace. Is that, like, just to keep it simple for the people listening audience, would that be something that you would, what would you say? How would you weigh in on that?
I think it's a matter of it's a matter of conscience ultimately in the new covenant. But under the new covenant, what you eat, your diet, regardless of what it is not what saves you or keeps you out of the kingdom. That's the thing. Because when I look to the ultimate interpreter of Scripture, who is Christ, he declares all foods clean. When I look to Paul, who is an apostle born out of time, but one with great authority nonetheless, he says that's not the way we judge people. And even going back into the Old Covenant itself, we see that those dietary laws that you mentioned were not even always in place. So clearly there's other ways that God is pleased or not pleased with what we do, and really it has to do with circumcision of the heart, which is the real thing he always said he was after. And so circumcision, eating things, not eating things, that has an outward appearance of wisdom, Paul says, but it's not ultimately what gains us any merit. So if a person wants to believe that they can be saved by law-keeping under the Old Covenant, then they have a number of issues that they've got to deal with. Number one, they got to recognize they're not actually able to do it, because there's a number of sacrifices they are not able to do. Number two, that includes the judgments. The Bible says unless you do the judgments, Israel, you'll also be cursed. Well, no one's stoning anyone for working in the Sabbath. Number three, there's the reality that nobody can actually keep these. All we can do is say, I tried my best. I tried really hard. But everybody knows we fail. And that's why Christ pointed out, we not only fail outwardly, but we fail inwardly, because when we were sitting there, we see a woman walk by, and we lust after her in our heart, we have broken the 10 Commandments in their intent because we have committed adultery in our heart. It's an impossible task, so it's impossible. I'm not saying that it's not there, but I'm saying it was never intended to save us. Those laws were never intended to save.
One last question. What if you're wrong? Have you ever stopped to
Wrong.
think, like, what if you're wrong? Because there's a level of humility, whether you say you're a Christian, self-proclaimed Christian, whether you come and say you're a Hebrew, whether you're waking up, there's a space, there's a margin, that there's a possibility that you're wrong. And so without humility, when you're coming at the people, and I'm not saying the people who are saying they're Hebrew Israelites are perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is when you approach the conversation in a way in which you have, throughout the time that you stepped on the scene, you're coming like you know for a surety that you're 100% right. And that leaves no margin. If you say we can't keep the law, how are you keeping what you say you're doing 100%? And coming after people who are not coming after you necessarily.
Well, that's where we disagree. So if everyone was more like you, and I could sit down and talk with them, and their questions were like clearly well thought out, and it was like this, I think we could have some awesome disagreements and discussions. But the thing is, what I'm encountering is when people talk about not coming against me, I'm not saying that I don't have to drive anywhere to encounter Hebrew Israelites every Saturday. I literally can walk 5 minutes to the block, and I'm on 19th Avenue, and I'm literally amongst them right there. I just have to go out of my front door and take 2 left turns, and I'm there. So and when I walk and I hear what they're saying, filled with lies and blasphemy and horrible things, that's why there's a level of there's sort of a level I come at it because of that. But if you talk to anybody that I sat down and had lunch with, or a phone conversation, certainly we could disagree. But I'm not acting like everybody's a one-Wester when I'm talking in one-on-one. But I am specifically coming against the folks on the street corner who are one-Westers first and foremost. And they don't approach anything with humility by and large. They don't approach anything with the question of what if we're wrong. I mean, one of the groups says, we are the home of the truth. And unless I am assertive, these folks won't even let me get a word in edgewise. And I have to put up with them saying things like, I hope that if you have a daughter, I hope that she's kidnapped and raped to death. And then 2 comments under, Vocab Malone's mother's head needs to be chopped off. Now, people on Debate Talk for You don't talk like that. I recognize that. But I'm out there on the street, not just with people on the internet. And so I understand what you're saying, but I also understand the context in which I've chose to function, and it's a whole other level from the way the Debate Talk for You world is. And if anyone's out in the street and they live in a major city, they know what I'm talking about. They know I'm not BSing, because all you got to do is throw a stone and you'll hit a camp these days. I mean, it's like it's everywhere in my city. So that's what I'm like dealing with. But I would love to talk to folks like you. When I first met you guys, and you guys were more the Tanakh-only crowd, it was clear there was a marked difference in the level of scholarship, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from the One Westers. So I recognize that.
Thank you for answering the questions. I relinquish the mic.
All right. Once again, y'all, feel free to call in. You know that number. You know, we doing Debate Talk for You, 319-527-6239. We don't screen calls, family. Anybody can call in. All I ask is that you keep it clean, keep it professional. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. Anything you want to say before we go on to the next call, Vocab?
I mean, I believe that what she was saying was heartfelt, and you know, there's some things there that I want to think about, and I appreciate her questions and the way in which she asked them. So all I have is good things to say about her phone call.
All right, no problem. Let's go to the next caller, family. And again, for those that just joined in, we have more people joining into the show. We appreciate you. The title of the show is Ask a Book Author. The title of the book is Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelites. My special guest, if you just joined into the show, is Vocab Malone from the Shield Squad. Again, feel free to call in and ask your questions. Let's go to the next caller. Let's go to 813-240. You'll have an answer.
Yeah, what's up, how you doing? This is me, Chris.
What's going on, man?
What's going on? What up, Mark? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Chris? How you doing?
I'm good. Hey, I got a question for you, Vocab. You brought up the law of circumcision. I think you explained it, because I got two questions for you real quick. Hold on. Okay, I got time here. You brought up the law of circumcision, and Sister Imuna asked you, was Israel Doctrine writing that into the text, and you said you don't know. That's what you said, right?
No.
Circumcision.
Circumcision is clearly in the Old Testament. I mean, it's definitely there
Correct.
in the Hebrew Scriptures. No question about that. And it's clear that, you know, I'm sure that all a lot of the initial followers of Christ were circumcised as well. So what I was saying is it's not there that it's a requirement for salvation.
Actually, you're wrong about that. It is there that it's a requirement for salvation, sir. Thus saith the Lord.
Adam, all right, so was Enoch saved?
Who was not saved?
Was Enoch saved?
Enoch was saved. Yes, he was.
Was he circumcised?
But here, let me read it to you.
Well, hold on.
I don't know. Was it?
Exactly.
No, he was not circumcised. Wait a minute. Hold on.
And the law of circumcision
hadn't come yet. Exactly.
Salvation.
Okay, well, can I read it to you? Let's see if you agree with thus saith the Most High. Because the Most High does not lie. Do you agree with that? Ezekiel 44, verse 9. Would you read that, please? Yep. These are prophecies during the Third Temple, which the Most High said that David will be king, by the way.
Thus saith the Lord God, no stranger uncircumcised in heart nor uncircumcised in flesh shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel.
Wait a minute. What? Say that again?
Thus
I couldn't hear
saith the
you.
Lord God. Well, I mean, certainly you know what it says, because we, right?
Well,
so,
you're stuttering. Come on, get it out, brother.
No, I read it once. I mean, I really need to read it again?
Okay, very good. No, you don't. You don't have to. I want to go to the next question. Now, I also have a copy of that book by Gwendolyn Hall called I have that book, and I'm going to pull it out right here because I actually had it just the other day geared up. I was reading over that book, by the way, and you sat up there and said that she explains the ethnicities of the Africans that came over here off those boats. Now, in that book, she said that we came from the Bight of Biafra, Benin, Togo. She said many of us were Ashanti and Togo in chapter 5. That's exactly what she said. Now, I heard you and G-Con on a radio show one day saying that blacks were, in fact, sub-Saharan Africans. Now, my problem when I heard that, I was like, nobody named themselves sub-Saharan Africans. So I'd like to ask you an important question, and I'm going to ask you two questions within this, because I'm going to give you a little education, sir, because, see, your people have been misinformed about our history because we've been taught the lies concerning your history, because the word history ain't nothing but his story. So let's attack this real quick. Now, what was sub-Saharan Africa called before the European colonizer came over there, put his hand on the map, and called it sub-Saharan Africa, sir?
There was multiple kingdoms in the area, so there was not one name.
That entire region was called one thing. What was it, sir?
That's not true. I don't know why you'd say that. I mean,
wait a minute. See, you don't want to answer. He doesn't want to answer the question. Y'all want to know why?
Listen, Chris.
Hold on.
No,
you answer the question. You haven't given me a name.
Hold on. Calm down.
You're painting the whole
you're going to give me some time with this guy.
One at a time, though.
I'm giving him one at a time. Go. Watch him run, though.
Chris, so you just went on and said a number of things. And let me
repeat the question for you calmly.
No, Chris.
Let me answer the question calmly. No, let me answer the question for you calmly.
The same.
What was sub-Saharan Africa called?
Okay, this is probably the 7th time you've asked this question. I don't know why you think it's a game winner for you.
No, it ain't no game with me, man. You a liar. No, why don't you just answer the question, dog?
I just answered the question.
Because you're a liar and you're the devil, man. I'm sticking you in your lies, man. Answer the question, dog.
Let him answer the question.
Let him answer the question. One name that sub-Saharan Africa had at any time, because there was multiple kingdoms and multiple people groups and multiple ethnicities. I don't know why you think it was named one thing. And if you think please tell us the source.
Okay, I will tell you the source. Okay. I'm going to tell you the source. Thank you.
Okay.
You guys can start with that book by Gwendolyn Hall, and you could trace back the word Afro-Asiatic, okay? Because this guy's a liar. And I'm called, that's why he doesn't want to name one. Wait a minute, don't talk when I'm talking.
What page?
Let me explain this. The name of, hold on, chapter 5. You read it, chapter 5. It tells you all the list. I'm at work. You read it, because I'm going to get into what they call sub-Saharan Africa. It was called So-Uda, which means the people of Judah. And that's what they called that entire region over there. Now, yes, they were all split up into different groups, but there were no Hamitic tribes over there. Wait a minute, sir. Stop it. It was saying that in the map that it was written. See, now you're playing semantics. And I'm not stupid, because you can never answer any of my questions. You didn't want to say it. Now, what is the capital of Cameroon?
No. When you make a claim,
what is the capital of Cameroon, sir? Sir,
Chris, it doesn't work like this. You don't
of Cameroon?
Look, Chris, if you're going to make a claim, hello?
No, I had to mute him, man. He's screaming. You know what I mean? Yeah, answer the question. I'll bring him back in. Okay.
Yeah, look, well, the question I'm going to ask him is he was saying it means the people of Judah. And so before he goes any further, because if he's saying that, he needs to tell us what language does it supposedly mean the people of Judah in. So that was my question back to him. I don't think it's the right way to do it, where he asks all these questions and then yells and then asks the next question. So what I was asking is, if he's saying it means that, what is this language that it means that in? And also, where's the evidence that is what the whole region was called? What time frame is this that the whole region was called the people of Judah region? Like, you can't just assert things. And look, it's clear that there's some emotionalism attached to this. But if we're just strictly dealing with scholarly subjects and facts of history, why the emotionalism? And I think the reason is because there's more than just strictly an intellectual thing going on. Chris thinks he's found something, and when it's challenged, he can't handle it being challenged, and that's why he's breaking down right now in his emotional constitution. But he's got to get it together and answer the question, what is the language that supposedly met this people of Judah, and what language was it that met that, and what are the time frames in which it was called this? What are the regions? Because he's making a big claim. So I want to ask him that. Furthermore, lastly, it doesn't prove the point, even if that was true, because the modern day country of Israel is called Israel. But Chris doesn't think anyone there is of Israel. He doesn't think they're actually Israelites. So what would the name of the nation have to do with proving the ethnic group of the people there? This argumentation is ridiculous, and it just makes it worse that he thinks he needs to bolster it by tripping out. Okay, I'm done with what he wants to say. Those are my questions. Back to the question.
Let me bring him back in. Let him allow him to answer the questions. Let me bring him back in. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, Sal, it's not that I'm emotional. It's just that I don't like you, Vocab, because you're a liar. You and your dogs and your minions. You guys are liars. You guys lie every time you come on, and you attack black people because they're trying to use the Bible to liberate themselves. Now, I asked you a question. You didn't want to answer the question about Souda. Actually, it was the French map maker Emmanuel Bowen went over there, and he said that those people were the people of Yehuda. The capital of Cameroon, I asked you the question concerning that. You don't want to answer that. You just got your face locked up concerning the law of, circumcision, that you must be circumcised in both the heart and the flesh in order to enter into the kingdom when it comes on earth. Now, you can continue to preach your Christianity, but I'm not emotional. I'm very passionate, and I know what I'm talking about because I study the book. It's not a ridiculous claim, and the people over there are not of Israel because the Creator clearly told us what would happen when the people return into their land. He said that he will pull them from Pathros, from Assyria, from Cush, from right. Egypt. And hold on, no, don't cut me off because I didn't cut you off. Don't you talk when I'm talking because you're a liar. And all of those were African countries indeed. Now, it said from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And the prophecies clearly state once you are back in your land, my tabernacle will sit amongst you, and the world will know that I have loved you. Now, where's their tabernacle? They don't have one. Now, you brought up to that young woman, and that queen killed you, by the way, live on air. You brought up the fact that we cannot sacrifice an animal. Well, Paul lied to y'all because according to Leviticus 26, the Father clearly tells us all we have to do is confess our sins. And that is what our book tells us to do because I am Tanakh only. I don't believe in your man on a stick. I don't believe in loving some man that died on a stick. And no man died for the sins of Israel or anybody else for that matter because that story traces back hundreds of thousands of years before the advent of Christ. You know nothing about the Roman occupation of Israel, and I would find it quite impossible but that this man would be walking around saying that he loves these people, killing his people. You are a liar. You have been caught, and the capital of Cameroon is Yehuda, and that's why I said I will debate you on who the true children of Israel are, and you run from me by continuously going to get low-hanging fruit from camps and bring them on Sal's show and debate them. You have done nothing but culture vulture my people and then come on there pushing this $10 toilet tissue that you're trying to promote. With that, I'll be leaving Sal. I'm going to be a thorn in the side of your shoe for the rest of your life. You are a liar and you racist. Shalom. It was written in English.
All right, well, I guess
you can respond.
There you go.
Yeah. You can respond.
Well, I mean, he didn't answer any of the questions. He didn't answer any of the questions I asked. So, I mean, there's nothing really to interact with.
Okay.
I wanted to know what language and all that, but we're good.
All right, family. Like I said, the title of the show is Ask a Book Author. You know, we're still looking for some callers that actually read the book. If y'all out there, we want to hear from y'all. You know that number, 319-527-6239. But if you didn't and you still got questions, feel free to call in. Of course, the show is open to anybody to call in. 319-527-6239. Let's go to the next caller. Let's go to 773-640. You're live in there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Hey, shalom. Now, grace and peace to everybody, all the audience listening. What's up, Vocab?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I can hear a smile on your face. It's Mikael Ben Israel, just calling in, you know, coming to acknowledge your masterpiece of a book that you've written. I just like to say, hey,
I appreciate
what?
that, but I don't know if it's a masterpiece, but thanks.
Hey, I would hope that you want to put your best in anything that you put out there, especially since the situation is so serious at task. I mean, after all, you are a Christian apologist, and so your number one goal in life is to defend the gospel. Am I correct?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's what I hope so.
Okay, cool. Now, I didn't call in here to debate you on scripture. I didn't call in here to personally bash you like some of your constituents seem to believe over. Like the little brother, LaRon Marley. He under the Bob Marley Act and blackface. I'm not on that at all. He always wondered what type of beef did I seem like I had with you. And like I've told him, I'm going to tell him right now, this ain't about me and you. I have never met you personally. You're probably a cool dude to hang out with. But let's just keep it 100. When the brother that just called in, Chris, I believe that was, just called in, the brother got a little emotional. And then you threw out the term, he's using emotionalism. Well, let me ask you a question, because I know you a smart dude. I know you a smart dude because, you wouldn't be able to articulate the books and be charismatic at things if you was dumb. Now, that's enough of me buttering up. That's about as good as you're going to get. Now, let me say this. So, look, Vocab, when you wrote this book, Obama versus the Hebrew Israelites, I studied a little social science and psychology, so I want to ask you, what was the reaction that you wanted to get out of the title? Because I know you know, as well as I know, a lot of people do not take the time to read books. They like to look at titles. That's why that term, don't judge the book by its cover, came from. So when you see, and I just want to give you this in case you don't know this, when you see a title with Obama's name in there, and you're in quote-unquote African-American in America, I'm just going to use America right now, and the history that we've had in this country, and a lot of people are emotionally attached to Barack Obama, regardless of his policies, whether they were good for us as a people or not. As a matter of fact, coming from one who is awakened Hebrew Israelite, I wouldn't even say that the man probably was not even an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no probably to it, but that's a whole nother story. So that's not even the problem. The majority of our people do not know who they are, and you know this. Now, whether you say we're Israelites or not, you know the majority of our people do not know what tribe they come from in Africa. Do you agree?
I agree that's true. Yeah, most people just they know Africa. That's it.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you said that. And we're going to keep this on a civilized dialogue. Let's try to tune it down a little bit and make this clear because, be careful with your answers because everything we are saying is going to be recorded. It's recorded right now and it's live. So look here. If we agree that the majority of our people over here do not know, they have an identity crisis. And you know this because I've watched Shield Squad, Soldiers of God. I've watched your version of Christian apologetics, and I say your version for a reason because Christian apologetics covers a large area. Y'all just one set. Like you said before, you have apologists that fight against atheism and every other thing, but your group is specifically geared to go against quote unquote Black Hebrew Israelites, which is a term I already told you was the FBI coined term. I don't dig it, but that is there, and y'all are using that term. So being that your sect of Christian apologetics goes a Hebrew Israelite, then and you have the knowledge that most African Americans have an identity crisis due to the transatlantic slave trade. My question is, this is the first one, because we need to talk for a second, and I don't think anybody here would have a issue with listening to this dialogue, because I think it's going to be healthy for the listener. Now, you agreed that African Americans have an identity crisis and they don't know the tribe that they come from, for the most part. And so we all agree on that. But the title of your book is Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, we know the turmoil and the terror and the trials that the African American people have went through in this country, which will spark emotionalism. So when they finally get a president that looks like them, a lot of people we know voted for him without even knowing his policies. And I met the man twice in real life, by the way, and a lot of people know that. That was on my old Facebook page. I don't think you met him, but you used his name in your book. That was real good marketing. So what I'm saying is, when you put his name on something to a people who looked at him as finally we got a Joseph in the land of Egypt where we've been oppressed, and then the enemy that you put next to him, because the book is verses, meaning at war, is Black Hebrew Israelites. I have to ask you, what did you think emotionally or mentally that would do to your everyday black person that just picked up that book and looked at the title?
Well, I don't think that's mainly going to happen. It's mainly going to get in the hands of people who are already kind of in the mix. But I know it'll be controversial. But honestly, I do want people to do a double take at the book's title. You know, I do want them to pay attention to it. I do want them to take notice. But the book's title would not exist unless the scene in a Netflix movie didn't exist, because that's where I got the inspiration. And to me, that was an interesting cultural moment to have the future president of the United States on the street debating people who were being portrayed as one Westers in the movie in 1981. To me, that's significant. And it makes sense that he would be aware of who they are, because his apartment in Harlem was close to the original school. Basically, there's no way, if he's going out to restaurants like Sylvia's and all that, there's really no way he could have avoided them. Now, did he have a debate with them like pictured in the movie, you know, a miniature debate? I don't know if that ever happened. But if I wanted to be strictly, you know, if there was no artistic license, Mikhail, the book could have said the Hebrew Israelites versus Barack Obama, because he certainly is a point of contention that a lot of people get on him, and in a pretty, like, distinct way. Now, I know it's true, they get on all presidents, but there's a few things about it. One is the first camps I came across were holding signs of Obama with devil horns coming out of his head. And even today, if you go to the ISUPK website, they got a page on there about the Barack Obama inauguration abomination. So it is a real thing. And furthermore, I saw multiple touch points with the community because he's considered to be a Hamite. And so that makes him, according to One West logic, someone who's a member of another nation, and he's in a marriage with Michelle, who is viewed as an Israelite. So he's in an unbiblical marriage, according to One West logic. So lots of points and lots of aspects made it make sense to say, here's what we can do with this. We could take something that people are confused about, that they don't know a lot about, and we can take the familiar, Barack Obama, to help explain the unfamiliar. So what the book does is it takes that scene in a Netflix movie from 2016, and it uses it as a launching pad. So imagine the book's like a rocket, and it takes off into the atmosphere of Hebrew Israelism, but the launching pad that begins the journey is that debate scene with Obama and those guys out on the street where he asked him about the KJV version and all that. So I know what you're saying. Some of what you're saying is more nefarious than my intent, but some of what you're saying is accurate as far as I understand a lot of what you're saying. Like, I'm not acting like I'm naive or ignorant to what you're saying. Like, I did want a creative, catchy title. I did want a title that would make people care about the book. I did want something that would make people scratch their head. And so I think it achieved that. Ultimately, you have to stand or fall on its content, because I don't think that, you know, just a title alone is going to do the work. But I hear what you're saying, and that's my general response. I mean, what do you think is that as far as a general response? Did I answer everything you were asking, or no?
No, you answered it. You answered it. Now, whether I think it's all genuine or not, that's one thing. But you answered it clear. Now, but by you answering that, you take me right into my next question. If you said you wanted people to scratch their head, they scratching more than their head. And I'm going to tell you why I know you know this. I've heard you and members of your organization, I'm speaking as far as Shield Squad and the other Christian apologetic groups that I would say are allied with you. I won't say that you are over soldiers of God and all of these groups. But when I came out with the video and showing that the little brother So Real said that you were the head of Shield Squad, I only said that because it was said already from him. Now, what I have to ask you is, you just admitted that it will make people scratch. Basically, you're saying you know it would drive up emotion. But when I looked at your trailer for the book, your promotion for the book, you said our community. Now, with that term, you said our community. What community was you speaking about? Were you speaking about the Christian community? And if so, which sect of the Christian community? Or were you speaking of the black community? Because I've never seen even the One West Israelites who your claim has always been this is more of an attack on the One West Israelites. But the title doesn't say One West Israelite. It says Black Hebrew Israelites.
Well,
and
the
I've
subtitle
never
does, though. The subtitle does say that. Yeah,
man,
right.
On,
so it is on the cover. Right? You know, it's on the front cover, though.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I ain't gonna bear false witness on you, because see, I really believe in the laws. I believe in the laws, especially ones that can be kept. So look around. So I won't bear false witness, but what I will say is, you know dang on well, 99% of human beings do not read small print. They look at the biggest letters. You know that just with food that people eat. But let me get back to the point. So, okay, you put that in the small print right there. But the big print is Black Hebrew Israelites, which I don't subscribe to, but I am a Hebrew Israelite. So I could have got into this long thing about if I meet a scenario, if I meet a black or black woman, and she's at a poor level in her life, and she bumps into me, and I teach her, I say, hey, have you ever thought of the Word of God? Oh, yeah, I thought of the Word of God, but I don't know much about it. And I get to teaching her Christ from the perspective that I understand, not a Christ that hates every nation on earth, but a Christ that's trying to redeem this people that is over here that you already admitted have an identity crisis, that I've heard your organization publicly say that one of the number one reasons that the Christian community, so, we'll just say it like that, the Christian community is losing members to the Hebrew Israelite movement is because you cannot combat the identity crisis that the Hebrew Israelites are seem to be feeling. Y'all have said this out y'all mouth. So if I'm talking to this brother or sister that's at this low level in their life and I'm bringing them God, and then I ask them, I say, well, man, what do you think about this? And they say, well, I think this is right. I want to get into this and follow this. And then they ask me, what is my denomination? And I say, well, I don't have a denomination per se. I'm a biblical Christian, we'll say. But my nationality is Hebrew Israelite. You don't think automatically a flag going to go up in their head because of it. They may have seen the title of your book and not even read it. And it said that this man, Obama, finally made it to the mountaintop. And now I'm sitting here talking to one of these cultish deceivers that is on his title, Hebrew Israelites. You don't think automatically now what'll happen is they're going to either turn away from me and think that I have some type of evil dealings due to something that they came across. You don't think that is a possibility realistically?
I mean, hopefully people would look at the book. I mean, I have some Christians who go the other way, what you're saying. Now, I know what you're saying, but they go the other way because I have some Christians who are like, hey, I don't really, like Barack Obama and his policies, so why would you put him on the cover of your book? I don't really like that name being there. I got people saying that as well because they think it's like a shout-out. And if you actually read, the book, I'm sort of valueless in how I talk about him. I just talk about it matter of fact about, he did this, he did that, he interacted here. I don't make, snide comments or anything like that against them. I mean, I did not vote for Obama. I think there was a lot of damage that was done, especially in the area of religious conscious freedom. But So I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is, I'm not trying to change the world's mind with just a book title, and I really don't think that's the way it works. Ultimately, people got to get in there and read it. You know.
You know what, Vocab? It is what it is. I'm gonna deal with this last segment, and I'm gonna let the next callers get on here. But this is where it's about to get real man up in here. Okay, yeah. The title is what it is. The title is out there. The book is going to do whatever the book is or it is not. Because I can tell you what it's not going to do, and you know this. You know, and everybody over there with you know, that there is no way, shape, form, or fashion you can put any type of substantial dent in the quote-unquote Hebrew roots movement. I don't think it's ever anything even been seen like this in this century. For the simple fact, it's not just an American thing. It is an African thing. I talked to Israelites from Ghana. I talked to Israelites from Nigeria. Talked to Israelites from South Africa. Talked to Israelites from the South Islands over there. Sorry, it's slipping my tongue right now. But Israelites from the Caribbean. So this isn't going anywhere. It's going to grow. But here's the thing. Here's the thing right here. You made.
Well, can I say something just about that? Can I say something about that?
I asked because my state. Yeah, you can respond, but and we keeping it, real cordial. But listen here though, my statement that I'm making is connected to the last point. So if you could kind of write it down or something, so you don't lose focus, because I do want to respect the other callers that's waiting on here. So just let me get this last part out then, and then you can give me your response. And Sal can take it from there how he want to do it, because I know it's other callers. So what I'm saying is we've already established just in our small conversation that we know emotions is going to be tied to this. And these emotions are not crazy. These are not a bunch of deranged people running around here that just can't read the text. They just can't research history. They just can't research geography and things of these natures. So let me get to this meat part of it. Since at the end of the day, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt publicly, regardless of personally how I feel about this whole movement. And I have a video coming out in a minute, too, so I hope you keep your eyes peeled. Let's say your goal and your apologetics members over there, true goal really is the gospel of Christ. You made a statement earlier, Vocab. You said ethnicity isn't really the big thing with you as far as somebody being an ethnic Israelite or not. I've heard you say this repeatedly. I will admit that. You didn't just say that today. I've heard you say this repeatedly. But I always see something different in your actions, right? Now, you said ethnic Israelism, I'll use that term, is not really the main focus. Yet I don't see you or any of your constituents over there attacking British Israelism. And other people have brought this up. And I don't want you to get into other groups of apologetics that do it. I'm talking about you guys specifically. If one of your beefs is the claims of the African-American, Caribbean, Virgin Island, all of us that have waken up to being Hebrew Israelites, if one of your beefs is we don't have any real historical substantiality to it or any biblical legitimacy to it, why don't you do the same thing with the British Israelites? Just like a caller brought up earlier, when you go to the scriptures,
let me answer this.
No, let me finish.
Brother,
let me finish.
This is a lot of lecturing.
Okay.
This is a lot of lecturing. You've got to let me speak.
Vocab.
But I'm not really talking. You're not even asking questions. This ain't a dialogue. Come on, man. This is a lot of lecturing, man.
Yeah, Vocab.
I just want to have a back.
Yeah, you can respond.
I don't dislike what you're saying, but this is something we should do like on a one-on-one call if you want to like kind of instruct me on this stuff, because you're just using this time to just talk at me, but you're not asking questions. There's no dialogue. It's not very dynamic. It's just there, and I've been kind of just listening, but you're not even really letting me respond when I say, hey, can I respond? Okay, the British Israelites, I don't know any. The only time I've met a British Israelite is in the pages of a book or on a YouTube video. I don't know any. They're not relevant to anything in my world. The only reason you think they're relevant is because You think we need to talk about them instead of talking about y'all. But when you guys bash Christians all the time, what you said, Christianity is insanity. No one comes back at you and says, hey, why don't you talk about Baha'i? Why don't you talk about Buddhists? Why don't you talk about Muslims? Why don't you talk about Hindu? Instead, we man up and deal with the claims of what you're saying about Christianity being insanity and defend Christianity instead of complaining that you're talking about Christianity. Talk about Christianity, but don't be upset, everybody, when we talk about Hebrew Israelism and why we think it's false. I do not understand this deflection. This deflection motif is not going to save the day to defend this belief system. So instead of doing that, why not just interact with what we're saying? Because we're not going to go away. We're not going to stop. We're not going to take up an interest in British Israelism, whoever they are or wherever they are. It's not going to happen. As long as people are busting in churches, as long as people are ripping apart families, as long as people are saying if you're not circumcised, you can't get into heaven, as long as people are saying if you're of the wrong skin color, you can't teach the Bible to me, as long as people are making people lift their shoes out on the street, as long as that's happening, we're going to be mixing it up. And so I don't understand this deflection motif that is going on again and again and again every single – you know what's a shame about it? Everybody says, I'm a vet. You don't want to mess with me. My sword game is sharp, attack, dagger. You know, I'm about to body him in the scriptures. And then when somebody comes and says, let's get in about the scriptures, why are you guys talking? Why are you doing that? Let's just man up and go, because we have already been going, because every time I turn on, even Israel of God, whom I respect, I speak of positivity about them in the book. When I listen on the sermons, you know what they do? They've got a whipping boy. You know who their whipping boy is? It's Sunday Christians. They say that phrase again and again in the Israel of God sermons. And they say outlandish things. Yes, even Israel of God says outlandish things about so-called Sunday Christians. They stereotype them. They make fun of them. They mock them. They belittle them. They say it's basically just negative. That's all I've ever heard Israel of God specifically, and that's not a One West camp, say when they say Sunday Christians. And they have no problem broad brushing all Christians as these ignorant Sunday Christians. But yet, when we want to talk about Hebrew Israelite and we even parse it out and talk about specific One West, all of a sudden everybody's offended. So I do not understand that. It's not going to really move the dialogue any further. And then lastly, are we going to stop Hebrew Israelism? It's like this. Religious movements grow. They ebb and they flow. This religion is on the ascendancy. Only someone who's out of the loop doesn't recognize that. I recognize it's on the ascendancy. However, I can tell you, because I was just in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago at an urban apologetics conference, and every single person that came up to me had a sad story to tell of how some version of Hebrew Israelism had affected their life. And they weren't all One Westers. Some of them were Tanakh only, and they were all types of things. But every person who came up to me, and there was a lot of people in that room, and I didn't see many white people, you know what I'm saying? Everybody that came up to me had a sad tale, and they were glad the book exists. And a lot of them said, I wish this existed 5 years ago before my family fell apart. And so that's what we're trying to get into. That's what we're trying to deal with. And I just wanted to make sure we had a dialogue. I wish it could be back and forth, but it wasn't that way because I respect you. I respect what you're saying. But it can't just be this long lecture while we're on the air. I don't see that being productive or really the point of today's show. I'm done.
All right, family, we're getting close to the 10 o'clock hours, 9:53 right about now. And Vocab, this one, listen, we got another hour left on the air. Do you have time to take some more questions, brother? Let me know.
Yes, I will. And everybody that's called, I do love and respect. You don't hear me name calling, but you will hear me clap back. And so I feel like sometimes I got to be assertive to do that. But it's not because I don't respect people. It's because to have dialogue happens, sometimes I have to up it just so we can make sure both sides are heard in the situation. But you'll never hear me mock or make fun of the folks who called. I'm not saying that I'm perfect or I never do nothing. I mean, I tend to ridicule some of the One West crazy doctrine, like bootlicking. I think we should laugh at that type of stuff. But nonetheless, I'm down to by the way, I'd love to a Hebrew Israelite to come on the Debate Talk for You platform who believes that the practice of bootlicking is biblical, because it's growing and you see all these videos, but I can't get anybody to defend it on the air on an objective platform. So I would like that to happen as well. And I know everybody doesn't hold to that, but to those who do, to share the videos, I would love to do a debate on this platform on the issue. But, yeah, I got more time, Sal, and thank you for facilitating the dialogue, man.
Yeah, just letting you know right now. I'm getting messages in the inbox. Mikael, he's directly from the IOG. Would you allow him to respond, to just that IOG comment, or you want to move on to the next caller?
It's up to you, Sal. It's your show. I just wish it could be. I just don't think the lecture format is good in this discussion. But whatever you want to do, man.
All right, just to that IOG comment, he's sending me a message about that. So we're gonna go open up his mic. Where is he? I'm sorry. Where are you, brother? Where did you go? First of all, okay, there we go. Good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that you took that as a lecture. It wasn't a lecture. I was trying to get a lot out and knowing that I had callers behind me. That's all. And so I might entertain sitting down with you, which I said I would never do it. And I know I'm going to get heckled for that one, just because this got to happen. But let me say this. You brought up the Israel of God, and this is where I'm glad y'all gave me my right to defend my camp, which I come from. Now, my camp, my ministry that I have is all together. So let me say this. Mute your mic, okay? Mute your mic or something, because there's something in the background.
Sorry about that.
On.
I'm sorry, that's my fault. I'll mute it. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, you brought up the Israel of God. The Israel of God is mentioned in your book with the house of Jacob. Am I correct?
I don't know if I mentioned house of Jacob, but I do talk about Israel of God in 2 or 3 paragraphs, yes.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Well, you pay more attention to your own book that you wrote. Now, let me say this. You talk about how the Israel of God goes as Sunday Christians and things of that nature, which is a denomination, not a whole race of people. Let me just add that.
There's no denomination called Sunday Christians. That's not a denomination.
But listen to what I'm saying. Sunday Christians is a specific identification of a group of people who do exactly that, worship on Sundays. Am I correct?
It's not a denomination, though, is what you said.
Cool.
I do not mention House of Jacob. I just looked it up in the book. I do not mention House of Jacob, no. Okay,
cool. So, all right, let's deal with this then. Now, you said that they bash Sunday Christians and they do all of this, all of that. I encourage the callers who listening to go listen to any Israel of God tapes, videos, any things of that nature, and you get from it what you get from it. But being that this is my last statement and you brought that up, are you aware of a man named James Fuggery, Fuggery? Well,
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, I remember on the show where you had a debate with a brother named Brother Alvin. That was from the LG Phoenix class. Do you remember that? On Debate Talk for You on this exact show.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Okay, yeah. He had nothing but positive things to say about you also. Now, in that debate, which he definitely sliced you up real good, I called into that show. And during that debate, y'all were going back and forth or whatever. He laid down a premise, you laid down a premise, and the debate was that. Here's the point that I want to make. There is something that I thought about in that debate, but I got cut off at the end, so I'm going to bring it up right now.
And remember, Mikael, we got some more callers. Just let you know.
Here I come. All right, here I come. I'm going to speed it up real quick. You had the transatlantic slave trade, right? And during the transatlantic slave trade, you had a form of Christianity that was taught to the slaves. Now, that form of Christianity had traditions and rituals, all of these things that they accepted. You have the Hebrew Israelites, who you wrote a book about. Although it all has different sects, it's certain things that we have in common. And one thing is, if you're a Hebrew Israelite out of the sect that believe in Christ, we still believe in keeping certain laws and statutes. They go back to the Old Testament, like take care of your neighbor, don't steal, no idol worship, all of these things. So what I want to ask you is, I'm going to leave with this. Which version, say there is no middle ground, which version of Christianity is better? The Christianity that we were all taught as black people from slavery? Because it actually literally lines up with even your Protestant version, and I want everybody to go look up Protestant racism in America and its foundation. You said on that show with Brother Alvin, you were not a part of the Catholic Church, but the Protestants. So we can broad brush you just like you do Black Hebrew Israelites. So I want to ask you, which version of Christianity is better for an African American today? Would it be the slave version of Christianity, or would it be the version of Christianity that you see from the Israelites, which are teaching us to not steal from each other, to not kill from each other, to follow health eating laws that's in the dietary law, no idol worshiping, no homosexuality, et cetera, et cetera. You tell me, if you had to choose, which one would be better for our community as black people, since you put our community as if you was part of our community? Which one would be better? That same Christianity that we learned in slavery on a plantation that y'all continually push, or the version of Christians that you see most Hebrew Israelites agree on, even if they're not racist? With that, I'll depart. I'll bump into you again, Vocab. I got your Facebook, and keep your eyes open from the video. Shalom.
Right on. Have a good one. Yeah, so I don't accept the premise behind the question. It's what's called a false dichotomy. A false dichotomy are two false choices, and the person is supposed to choose one of them, but those aren't the only two choices. And in fact, I don't really accept either of those as true Christianity. A slave-holding Christianity, as Frederick Douglass said, is not really Christianity. So, yeah, people can mess up and make mistakes and be sinners, but if you're doing what people were doing in the antebellum South at that level, it's difficult to see how a Christian man or woman could do that and be involved with it and still say, I'm like Christ. So I don't accept that really is Christianity, and I don't accept what he's talking about as Christianity either. And I've done something that I would encourage people to check out, and it's called a series that I did for something called UrbanTheologianRadio.com, and just Google this, 30 Black Christians you should know. 30 Black Christians you should know, with the number 30. It's not spelled out. 30 Black Christians you know. And in there, you'll see person after person, from man to woman, from every place across the United States, across the globe, and even in relationship to across Africa, who were under trying, horrible conditions of white supremacy, and yet exercise godly Christianity in a way that is admirable to people of all types. And I would just encourage people to look them up and see these little biographies that I wrote and created at the UrbanTheologianRadio.com website, and look at them and see if you're not inspired and challenged. So the point is, even in the midst of an abuse of the Christian religion that basically becomes some kind of permutated, slave-holding religion, which is really no such thing, even in the midst of that hypocrisy, you have people who really latched onto the Word of God, and you have people who were able to see Christ for who he was and demonstrated Christ in an amazing, amazing way. Absalom Jones, Alexander Crummell, Betsy Stockton, Benjamin Banneker, Daniel Payne. The list is long. Of course, I mentioned Frederick Douglass. And a lot of these people are unsung heroes of the faith. And I want to change that, and that's why I did this 30 Black Christians You Should Know. Now, this is old. A lot of folks haven't even seen this, but I encourage folks to check that out, because I do not accept the false dichotomy that he presented it. Although I understand why he's presenting it, I don't agree that it's a valid question. So neither one.
All right, family. Once again, we're at the 10 o'clock hour. We have one more hour on the air. And I appreciate Vocab Malone for agreeing to stay on and take some more of your questions and some of your comments. Again, title of this show, Ask a Book Author, Barack Obama. The title of the book is Barack Obama versus Black Hebrew Israelites. Special guest Vocab Malone. The number is 319-527-6239. Let's take some of your calls. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to 225-719. You're live in there.
Yeah, can y'all hear me, Sal?
You loud and clear. Mm-hmm.
All right. I ain't really got no questions or nothing for Vocab. How's it going, Vocab? This is David from the group chat.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I just been reading your book, bro. I just wanted to make a few comments on it. Like, the majority of this is crazy, even though I've listened to Debate Talk for You and all kinds of stuff, like for and against the so-called Hebrew Israelism movement. A lot of the stuff you're covering in this book is actually, like, I think extremely helpful because it's like background information. Like, I don't know if a lot of people would get that by the title about. So it gives you, like, basically like you've even said in your video, like the background to educate people on what they need to know when going against these type of people.
Well, I appreciate the positive comments about the book, but it's not necessarily going against. As far as the ideas present in Hebrew Israelism, yeah, we might need to, go against those. But the folks that are involved in this, these are not personal enemies. These are men and women, made in the image of God. These are folks who,
right.
A lot of times, it's true. There's an excellent article by Carl Ellis Jr., and it's on Christianity Today. It's called The African American Church, Past, Present, and Future. And he says an important thing. He says, we all have core concerns, life-defining and life-controlling values and or issues. These concerns can be personal, social, and or cultural, yet the cultural core concerns distinguish people groups. Generally, the societal norms and protocols are oriented to the dominant culture. Because of this, the cultural core concerns of the subdominant culture tend to be left unaddressed. In the African American church, these concerns are related to empowerment, namely dignity, identity, and significance. And I wish I could read more of that article, but I don't want to come on here and just read Carl's article. But it's a fantastic article, as well as his book, Free at Last, The Gospel and the African American Experience. And he speaks about how there is that issue, just like Mikael brought up, of identity that is sort of especially keen in certain folks in America because of the past. Now, everybody has that, question to an extent, question that it's especially acute. And so it does need to be talked about and addressed and all that. And so people get caught up sometimes in Hebrew Israelism because they think they found an answer to that question of who am I, why am I here, where did I come from, where am I going, what's my purpose, and they think they found it. And that's why you sometimes see people defending it in such a way. But what we want to say is this, is if you got a loved one and they're starting to get caught up in this book plus the Bible study that hopefully you could come out of this book, like if you look at the chapter entitled Relevant Biblical Passages, hopefully you could sit down and have a Bible study and it could be seen, hey, this isn't really the right way to interpret Scripture. And that's what we hope happens, is that people really see the gospel for the beauty that it is, as well as Christ for who he is, instead of, and I'm not trying to be mean, but to be honest, the distorted view that Hebrew Israelism gives people. And so that's what we hope happens. So the ideas are the problem, but the men and women involved in this, whether they come at me, aggressive or not, I think we should all, as Christians, have a real heart because just like this article says, a lot of times these concerns go undernoticed or underserved, and that's not right. That needs to change.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I must have just came off wrong, but I agree. I think I've heard that statement, but I haven't read that book. Yeah, right. Like Matthew 28:19 and other verses talk about. Yeah, it's not the individuals; it's just what they believe, and I get it because like when you're searching and you find something that seems like has the answers to what your core is searching, the thing that you've been searching for at its core. When you get to see something like that, like it makes you just want to grab onto it, and sometimes it makes you blinded to other things that sometimes at other times could be more obvious. But yeah, I get it. I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, and I wouldn't attack people personally. Yeah, that's the main thing. Really, Bible study. If you could actually get to sit down with them, that would be a real awesome thing, because that would be way more better than all this aggression on either or side. Like, not to point out any side, but yeah, I agree with you.
But thanks for getting the book, man. I appreciate it, for real.
Yes, sir. All right, that's all I wanted to say.
Have a great day, man.
All right, appreciate your call. All right. Once again, we're in the 10 o'clock hour, family. Get your questions in. You know that number, 319-527-6239. Now, you know, some of the special guests that we invite on the show, you see them on videos, you see them in lectures, and you never really get a chance to ask questions. Well, here's your opportunity. Make sure you call in. You know that number, 319-527-6239. Now, like I said, keep it clean, though. Keep it professional once you call into the show. Let's go to the next person, though. Let's go to 832-760. You're live on air.
This is Black Jesus Minister of Black Jesus Radio.
Hey, Black Jesus Minister. What's up, my man? What's going on, brother?
What's happening? How y'all doing? How you doing, Sal? What's going on, Vocab, and everybody else listening in and talking in?
How you doing, man? How you doing? You got that radio voice.
Look here, Brother Vocab. Well, let me say this to all the Hebrew brothers and sisters real quick. First of all, to all the Hebrew brothers and sisters, especially those of you who know that the One Westers and a whole bunch of other groups that are closely aligned with the One West, I have heard many of my brothers and sisters say, oh, those are those crazy Hebrew Israelites, okay? Now, to those of you who are upset with Vocab Malone being a Caucasoid male writing a book about issues within the black community, it should have been your responsibility, Black Hebrew Israelites, those who are not of the One West doctrine, those who have called those and those who are closely aligned to them and have called them, those are those crazy Hebrew Israelites. It was your responsibility, brothers and sisters, your first responsibility, as I have stated many times on DTPU, TRS, and on Black Jesus Radio, that it should be those who have walked away and have seen the falsehoods of the One West doctrine. It should have been our responsibility, your responsibility, especially those of you who stepped out of that mess, okay, and to a higher consciousness that I, Black Jesus Minister, as a Black Christian Hebrew Israelite, as a Black African, Egyptian, Canaanite, Hebrew Israelite Christian, okay, have expressed to my brothers and sisters, my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters, that it is your responsibility to have made issue and to have taken issue and to have taken to task these One Westers that's preaching on the corners and deceiving our people and destroying our community and our people. Okay? Now, and because you all failed to do this, then this is what then you allowed someone else to come in and try to correct and try to address our community problems. This is what happens, Black people, when we sit on the sideline and we don't deal with evil and we let it sit and fester among our people in our community. This is an opportunity to say we need to we need to step up on our game and stop being quiet and silent about brothers and sisters that we used to be affiliated with and who are preaching false doctrine, and we're just going to be quiet on that. No, the time is not to be quiet on it. And I want to take my hats off to many brothers and sisters who have been dealing with the falsehoods of the One West doctrine and those who are closely associated and aligned with them, because I know that there have been some, but there have not been enough. Okay? There's enough of you all who have stepped away and know that those are some crazy doctrines, some false doctrines, for you all to be dealing with that, for you all to be dealing with this issue so that it can be corrected, not to destroy the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, but to destroy false doctrine and to correct it and to bring the correct knowledge and to correct understanding of our identity as Hebrew Israelite, African brothers and sisters. Okay? Now, Brother Vocab, I'm turning to you real quick, brother. 2 questions. Did you vote for Donald Trump? Don't answer that yet. Which I said is answer question number 2. Now that was just a lighthearted question, but here's my serious point, Brother Vocab.
Yeah, now, I did not. Just so you know. Okay, I was what they call a hashtag never Trumper.
Okay, got you, Doc. I just want to throw that in as a light curiosity. But anyway, brother, you know me to some extent, and I preach against false doctrine everywhere. I don't care where it is. Christian false doctrine, Hebrew Israelite false doctrine, Nation of Islam false doctrine, atheism, wherever false doctrine is taught, wherever lies live, and it is not exclusive to the Black Hebrew Israelites. There's tons of false Christian doctrine in Christianity and in Christendom. Don't you agree, Brother Vocab?
Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of. There's more falsehood than truth,
right,
certainly.
Right. But what we are not going to allow you to do, Brother Vocab, whether you have the intention or the unintention of doing what you're doing, but it seems you and my brothers and sisters over at the Shield Squad, okay, that you all have an agenda while you are, and I applaud, while you all are addressing the false doctrine of the Black Hebrew Israelites. The majority of it I applaud and I agree with. But at the same time, it seems that you all are trying to maintain the whitewashing of history and Christianity, because Christianity is an African monotheistic religion. That's where it came from. That's its origins, okay? And that the original Hebrew Israelites are Black African people, and that Jesus is a Black man. So now the Hebrew Israelite movement is teaching these truths, Brother Vocab. So now, Brother Vocab, my question to you is, hold on now, keep it moving. I got it, brother. So my question to you is, okay, will you accept my debate as a Christian brother? As I challenged you, and you haven't responded for 2 or 3 weeks. You act like you didn't hear me. I challenged you on your show. Will you accept my challenge to debate me on Black Jesus Radio as to Jesus being Black, the original Hebrew Israelites being Black African people, brother? Because we're not going to allow you, with the intention or the unintention, all right, to sit up here and try to smear the truths of the Black Hebrew Israelites and our identity as a people. Do you accept that debate challenge?
Let me respond. I might be open to debating, I guess, if who was Jesus.
Don't get scared, brother. Don't get scared, brother. Come on now, answer.
No, it's like this. Here's what it is. I could debate who is Jesus, and if you want to talk about his ethnicity within that, I could do that. But here's the thing. I don't want to talk about the color of Jesus. Let me respond, please. Let me respond. You went on.
Hot seat, brother. You said bring the questions to you now.
So let me answer the question.
No, sir. No, you're not going to be a punk and run. You just sit up here and tell me that you're not. We'll know that you're a punk out of the situation. But you let me know if you don't. The issue is that the Hebrew Israelites are Black people. Now, are you on debate me?
Let me respond, please. Let me respond. Now, how is it you get to speak in 5 paragraphs and I can't get a sentence out? That ain't right. Now, here's what it is. I would be willing to debate you, especially since you just said what you just said. But I don't have to agree to your exact parameter. I'll debate you on who was Jesus, because I'm not going to have a debate with somebody about the color of Jesus' knuckles and then not talk about whether he was God or not. So if we want to talk about Jesus, I will talk about what you perceive to be his ethnicity based upon the text you want to bring. That's fine. But it has to be a large discussion about who was Jesus, because we need to make sure we know who he is as the Son of God, as the Savior, as the one and true. We need to make sure we get that, not just how dark his hue was. So, yes, I'll debate you on who was Jesus, but I'm not going to just only limit it to was Jesus Black, although we certainly can discuss that within the context of the debate. Now, I do not agree with this whitewashing of Christianity. I encourage people to read books like A History of Christianity in Africa, or The Blessing of Africa, or Africans' Influence on the Christian Mind.
Influence?
Title.
Yeah, right.
I encourage people to get those books, because Christianity is more Middle Eastern and African than it is European. It's just been the past. It's just, wait, did you hear what I said? I said it's more Middle Eastern and African than it is European, meaning that's where the genesis of the early church was. important in the Scripture, both Old and New Testaments. I don't deny that. In fact, I affirm that. So I don't agree with this whitewashing of Christianity and that Jesus is white because I don't teach that. So the importance of the African church is very important to me, and the fact of the early church being in North Africa and how important Africa is in the Bible itself. And there's another book I recommend by Edwin Yamauchi, Africa in the Bible. That's important stuff. So you're putting something on me that I don't agree. I don't believe Jesus is a white man. I don't believe that Christianity is historically white. I don't believe those things. So I don't want to have that put on me because that's not true.
All right, so you accept the debate. I'll send you a message, brother, through brother Sal Showtime or through Matt Surreal, so we can set it up on Black Jesus Radio, brother.
Yeah, who was Jesus? I will debate you on that.
And was he an African man? Was he black African? And were the original Hebrew Israelites African black people?
No, one at a time. I'll debate the
African
Jesus one
black
first.
Israelite people.
I'm not going to debate two different topics. So we could debate the Jesus one, and we'll talk about the Israelite one later, but that's a messy debate when you have two totally different theses going on.
Okay,
we can debate who's Jesus, including the thing you want to discuss, certainly, yes.
Brother Vocab, it's very obvious that you're running, sir, okay? I made it very simple. Sir, you're running.
I will debate
you.
We'll
set it up. We'll try to come up with a title, and we'll bring in all the issues that I'm talking about and what you're talking about as well.
All right.
All right, man. Appreciate the call. Once again, y'all, let me see what time. It's 10:21, family. We're going to take some more of your questions, some of your comments, y'all. Let's go to the next person, though. Let's go to, hold on. Let's go to 718-258. You're live in there.
Lila Tove, listening audience. This is Mayana from Debate Talk for You under the Palm and the Relationship Challenge. Good evening, Mr. Reiser.
How you doing, Mayana?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for taking my call and my question. I have a few questions for you. I'll try to keep them brief, and I probably won't get to all of them. Maybe another opportunity will arise between us for us to explore this further. I have had the opportunity to read several pages of your book, and my sister Mayana has asked you, or my sister Muna has already asked you a few of the things that I was curious of as well. But I'll begin this way. Do you disagree, and I'm pretty sure I have the answer to this, but do you disagree that melanated people were brought from the continent we call Africa? Sir? Can I be heard?
Yeah, Vocab, you're on the air,
sorry,
Vocab.
My mic was muted. I'm sorry. My mic was muted because I didn't want to be loud. I'm sorry. I was responding, but I couldn't be heard. I'm sorry. Yes, what I said was I do agree the melanated people were brought from the continent of Africa. They were.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you discredit that identity if they were unable to speak any of the 1,500 to 2,000 languages on that continent?
You mean in 2017, or do you mean in 1517?
Correct. Would you, for example, it doesn't sound like you would disagree with me if I self-identified as having descent from the continent of Africa. Would you challenge that identity if I told you that I could not speak any of the Hamitic languages?
You mean in 2017, or do you mean in the 16th century? That's a big difference.
Right now, me personally, Mayana, who's on the phone with you today, I'm saying to you, it sounds like we're in one of...
Right now, of course not. But if somebody was kidnapped from the area now called Cameroon and could speak none of the languages there, that would be a serious problem, and it would be a question as what their identity was. How were they in an area where they spoke none of the languages? So we're dealing with a different, and that's the point there with folks running around saying they're Hebrew who historically have never shown the ability to know Hebrew. And in fact, I think it's an interesting thing. All the Hebrew Israelites had to learn their Hebrew from basically Ashkenazi and Sephardic sources, and then they adjusted it, but that's the way they gained it. They didn't learn it from West African schools. And so that
I'm not sure if I'm getting a direct response. We got one accord. We were even when we said that if I said to you that I had an African descent and I claimed that as my identity, you would not challenge it. If I said to you that I could not speak any of the languages with which I identify with, I was asking you, would you then challenge the identity we just agreed on? And that I feel is pretty yes or no.
Yeah.
You would challenge me. If I told you that I can't speak any of the African languages, you would deny the fact that I descend from the continent of Africa at that point.
No, in 2017, of course not, because
right. And that's what I wanted to be clear on. Thank you so much for answering that. So then, isn't chiding, as you said, a stolen people for returning slowly to their former understanding and reacquiring the language, citing language as an issue? Isn't that speaking from a position of colonialistic privilege?
Wait, you're saying that, can you repeat that, rephrase that? I'm not sure I understand your question.
Absolutely. I'm saying that what you cited earlier in the conversation was that because those who are currently in 2017 stating that there's a descendancy between modern Israelites who are self-identifying in this way, but because there is a disconnect with the language, for you, that is one of the ways that you will disqualify that claim because there is an absence of knowing the language. Isn't that speaking from a position of colonialized privilege? Of course, these are people, like you said, have been stolen, have been separated from a past. So wouldn't they slowly be returning and reclaiming that information? Isn't it a bit from a point of privilege to chide them on that particular point?
So are the Hebrew Israelites learning the Igbo language? Are they learning the Bantu languages now? Is that what's happening? Because that's not what.
Are they claiming to be Igbo or Bantu? See, this is what I'm saying to you. If I was saying that I was from Africa, that would be a fair claim. But I will answer that question because I'm going to presume that it was a sincere question. From that point, if you were asking me in my particular, just speaking from my particular circle, absolutely. The sisters that I know have gone to Ghana, have gone to Nigeria, have gone to Ethiopia, and have in fact created an index of language coming from those cultures that claim Hebrewisms in those spaces. I heard, and in your text, in this most recent text, there's a bit. I see that you visit the camp version of Hebrew, the Lashawan Kodash, and you make your statements about that. I think that you probably would find many people who have similar criticisms about that. But I think that my question was just to intimate to you that perhaps the argument that not everyone is fluent in biblical Hebrew, that is somehow an indication that they do not have the right to the designation that they are claiming simply on the basis of language. The fact is that we are all speaking a language that is historically foreign to us. And so we are all, my mother is from a different country. She is from Lima. I don't speak that language. And for me to acquire that language is something that I would have to study secondhand. I'm not my mother's first generation coming here. I'm second generation on her side being here. So, I mean, the fact that there's that disconnect from the language, I'm asking you to kind of consider that may not be the best way to disallow the argument based on language. I wanted just to give you that. I was submitting that for your consideration to think about the argument of there's a disconnect between the people and the language, because there are many people who are disconnected from their language, and there isn't this question of identity based on that value. You understand what I'm expressing to you? Okay,
yes,
so my second...
Well, can I respond to that to add a
absolutely, by all means.
Which is the way that I guess you said it was a criticism works, is it more in relationship to the 16th century than it is to the 21st century, meaning it's saying if you don't have among the different ethnicities people and anyone who is speaking Hebrew, that's the problem there. It's not the problem in 2017 because I don't speak any Sicilian, which, by the way, Sicilian is different than Italian. They're not the same languages, but I can talk to Grandpa Polino, and he could tell me how his parents got on a boat in Sicily and came over. So there's there's something there I could have a conversation about. I don't speak Sicilian though, so I'm not saying now. But if those folks back then had no facility with Sicilian, and yet were claiming to be Sicilian, that would be a problem. But here's the thing: I don't see very many folks in the 16th century claiming to be these Hebrew ethnicities. They claim to be from different groups and ethnicities and tribes and kingdoms than what the Hebrew Israelites are claiming about them now. And I find that disconcerting because it's sort of anachronistic to go back and say, actually, these people were wrong about who they were. We know that when they went to the Cameroon, they said they were this and that, but they were actually incorrect. This is what they really were. I find that troubling because 500 years later, I don't see why we think we know better than them. I think what they said then had some merit to it, and they didn't claim to be Hebrews.
This is what I hear you saying, and you by all means interject if you feel that I'm misunderstanding you. But what it sounds like you're continuing to deride us for is not having a formal organization that you can identify until comparatively recently using the terminology that you are expecting. So the fact that there are these people who are not using these hermeneutic terms and are not using these ecumenical terms and not using these seminary terms that are acceptable for these types of conversations does not mean that the way they were self-identifying then didn't make sense to them. And I think that what you're looking for is a language that wasn't necessary. Language is an index, according to Edward Safer, who's an anthropologist in linguistics. He stated that language is an index of the culture. And if the culture didn't have the same need to feel like they needed to be recognized by outsiders, then I think that this 2017 insistence upon being visible in that way might be what you just called anachronistic.
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I agree. Actually, language can be used as an inappropriate power over people and creating false categories that can kind of barricade people out just by utilizing language in certain ways. I agree that that type of thing can happen, and sometimes that's where, even though I don't agree with them by and large, the postmodern literary scholars, so-called, have some points of merit in how language can be misused as a human tool, even actually as a human tool of oppression. So if you're saying something along those lines, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying because there's not this formal thing. And in fact, there's a good book by Thabiti Anyabwile. I always mispronounce his last name. It's a little bit challenging, but it's called The Decline of African American Theology. Now, the title's not as melancholy as the actual book is, but if you look at that, it speaks about sort of what you might call the invisible institution, and that means the church that existed among the slaves, in a manner of speaking. That's what was sometimes called the invisible institution, because it was the church within the people. Yeah, they didn't have seminary education and this and that, but that doesn't mean there wasn't anything there, and that's why we can comb and look through the spirituals of old. We can get sermons. We can look at some of this. We can even see people who rose above the circumstances, such as Frederick Douglass, but he's not the only one. He's just a prominent one, and see what they were saying, and we could see that there's a clear attestation to biblical Christianity, even without some of the fancy speak, and sometimes people were even able to achieve the fancy speak and yet have a dual tongue and be able to speak plain theology to plain folks. So I respect all that. I'm not putting those false structures. It's not about that. It's more just saying, was there really what people are claiming about what happened then? Do we see it during the time back then? And I don't see real strong evidence that that's the case. If there was the type of people saying now in the 21st century, what they're saying about folks who were getting kidnapped, if they were saying a similar thing back then about themselves, that would be important. Now, I'm not saying just one guy. Like there's a phrase in the Equiano book that people often point to, but there's a dubious aspect and an ambiguous aspect to this one phrase in Equiano's journal. I'm talking about substantial, multiple places where we have a witness to that. That would be something that we should really look at, but I don't see that. That's the challenge. I'm not saying it's not there. If it is there, then we should talk about it. I'm just saying I haven't heard about this really in any significant way, if it exists.
Well, thank you for answering that question. Mr. Reiser, you have on various platforms through time, in the last year or so, 2 years that I have been paying some attention to you. You stated that you have been on occasion ill-received by the Israelites you have engaged. Would you say that there is room for culpability on your part? Upon honest reflection, do you agree that you have been purposefully, in some instances, provocative and even sardonic?
In relation to One West doctrine, yes. I utilize satire. I'll utilize other things that in a personal conversation with somebody sitting down that I would not feel would be appropriate or adequate or Christ-like to use. But when somebody is sharing a video on social media of somebody licking the bottom of their shoe, I do think satire and other forms of rhetoric are more than acceptable. When somebody points to a woman walking by of any color and utters the most horrible words at her, and regardless of what a person wants to say, for example, about sexual ethics, because I do believe in a biblical sexual ethic, when somebody walks by and they perceive the person to be outside of a biblical sexual ethic and they say the most horrible things about that person, when this is going on every single Saturday in streets across America, including my own within literally like a stone's throw, to me, I do want to react in a certain way that I think meets the challenge of what they're bringing. And it's not just with a footnoted book that's all happy and nice, because that's not how they're operating. That's not what they're understanding. I don't mean it means denigrating them as image of God bearers, because they are, but I do mean the claims that they're making need to be dealt with. And I'll give you an example real quick. GMS, I call them the worst of the worst of the worst, and I think most people would agree with that. And if you look at GMS of theology, it's been illustrated in a blog. This blog was called ytpolitics.blogspot.com, the letters Y and T. Well, we did an expose, a 3-part video on this specific blog. It was filled with the most horrendous illustrations you could ever imagine, including women of multiple ethnicities being sex slaves while the man would lay there being pleasured and being fed with grapes and all this, while he would lay there with a bloody sword and a man's severed head next to him on the bed. That's just one illustration among many that was on this blog. Well, guess what? A week later, after we did this expose, they took the blog down. I view us mocking that insane blog as a victory because they took it down. Now, honestly, in another way, I wish it would stay up to expose the insidious nature of GMS theology, but nonetheless, it's down. I don't know if they got embarrassed. I don't know what happened, but a week later, it was gone, and it had been up for more than a decade. So this is no fluke. Well, to me, that deserves ridicule. Now, anybody on here, from Yukon on to Chris Harris, will tell you I'll give them my phone number, and when I'm driving around in my truck at work, I'll call people and I'll talk to them and have extended conversations. There's people locally I'll meet up with lunch, but I mean, I'll meet with anyone from Sakai to a more chill person. It doesn't matter as long as we can meet up. So I'm not against that. But when I see One West operating in the street, that arouses a certain level of desire to defend people. And I don't mean physically. I don't mean, me against 10 guys using special karate skills. I'm talking about with the word of the God, which they say they're using, but they're actually abusing. So I agree.
I hear what you're saying, sir, but when you say that you are being mistreated or that you're being ill-received without also adding the part that you are, in some instances, drawing that kind of ire in your direction. In an article that you wrote in February of 2016, you wrote, and in quotes, because I guess you're quoting yourself, you said, "Heads up, my man, I'm coming at you." And the language that you used previously, and I don't know if you thought that perhaps the listening audience didn't have the vocabulary to understand you, Mr. Reiser, but the word you used was incursion, and that is necessarily categorizing these men of Israel, and to be honest, the women and children, because you make no distinction, and that you are necessarily creating an atmosphere that makes this population appear to be aggressive. Incursion is talking about an attacking force, and so when you frame
busting in church doors.
Allow me to. When you frame the entire culture in this particular light, then you are necessarily, and it sounds like deliberately, asking for some type of perhaps not physical violence, although not everyone may want to be intellectually combative the way that you have chosen to be, but those who listen to you, who, as one of the other callers said, would not be operating on that level and have taken it to more physical extremes. The other thing, and I'll of course allow you to reply, but sir, I mean, a lot of the language that you are using is necessarily to incite a particular atmosphere, and you're bringing about, and it's not, in some of the spaces that I've heard you speak in, you said that you're looking to open up lines of communication and that you prefer to have intellectual discourse. And for me, being who I am, I appreciate that particular approach, but on the underbelly of the way that some of this is being presented, I think that you kind of run counterintuitive to what you claim is your intent, because necessarily you put the other people on the defense. Not everyone is doing these things, and I think that you, on occasion, are very monolithic about the way you have encapsulated the entire culture. And I heard you in this conversation make some distinction between those who are Tanakh only and those who speak from a more messianic perspective, but I don't hear you do that with any type of consistency. So I wonder, and I'll ask that question of you, do you agree, or can you see how that could be problematic for whatever it is that you want us to believe is your intent?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Those are well-formed questions. This idea of formulating an atmosphere of violence, I've never said anything about this being physical. I've never said anything along those lines. In fact, we got to remember the camps are the ones who have names like general and officer and soldier and wear military boots. I mean, that's where the militaristic aspect's coming from, not from me. In fact, I looked up the article you referred to. Here's the full 3 sentences. My main goal in this piece is to give the reader the basics about the Hebrew Israelites. Well, it says Black Hebrew Israelites in this part of the article. It is not intended to be an all-out rebuttal. I'm writing more in the vein of, heads up, my man, coming at you. That's saying that there's a casual tone, and I'm saying be aware about this group. That's what I'm letting you know. It's like, hey, this is over here. It's not saying, heads up, Hebrew Israelites, I'm coming at you. If you read the sentence, I think, I guess it could have been written better, but to me it's clear because I'm talking about the way I'm writing towards the audience, which is to inform them about something. But with the idea of creating this environment, here's how I was first exposed to One West. A friend from the neighborhood called me up and said, these guys are busting into church services, cursing people out, scaring them, talking about raping them, and then leaving. Well, I looked up what he was saying and found out what he was saying was true because I found the videos of GMS Columbus. Then I had experiences similar to that. You can go online and see the videos. So the real aggressive tactic and the militaristic are the people who are saying, I'm going to put you in chains, and I'm going to melt you, and I'm going to enslave you, and all of this. I never say anything even remotely like that at all, but it is certainly an incursion. And here's why it's an incursion. I've heard of story after story of somebody flipping over to Hebrew Israelism and secretly, in the context of a church setting, trying to flip people over to their belief secretly like a snake in the grass, not out in the open, not up front, but by going to people one by one until they leave and then cause a church split because they've been doing all this behind-the-scenes work. That story has been repeated more than once, and sometimes it's pretty extreme. And there's also an incursion when you see things like this ISUPK video. Now, I don't know the full context of it, where they've got a pastor handing over the keys to the commanding authority of General Yohana. That's an incursion. And so it's a theological incursion, and the main people they're attacking are people in the community. And it is a serious issue. And you say, well, the women are victims of this. Every time I talk to somebody that is a woman who's had to deal with a husband or a loved one in this, it's an ugly, sad, tragic story. And I know you sound like someone who would never want to be in a One West camp. So if you know the types of things they say, it would seem like it's proper to want to defend. I mean, do you know the One Westers have a phrase for what they call, this is more an old school phrase, but occasionally you'll still hear them use it. They say the black woman is the white man's general. That's a common phrase they bandy about, One Westers specifically. And what, of course, it's saying is the biggest ally in the fight of the truth that the devil has is the black woman. She's his greatest ally. That's who comes against us, the white man's general. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, you got people who got to put on their cell phones when they call their Hebrew Israelite husband or whatever, they have to put the cell phone as Lord, my Lord. I mean, this goes on and on and on. And so I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm simply responding to a reality that already exists. I'm not creating a combative, hostile environment. I'm exposing what's already there. And when I do it, you'll never hear me mention things of a physical or military nature. That is all coming from the other side, and it's the One West side.
All right, fam. We only got like 15 minutes left, y'all. I'm pretty sure I won't get to all the callers. We have so many callers out here. I won't be able to get to all of them. But probably had time for maybe one or two. Or hopefully more if everybody's not long-winded. Then we can to get some more questions. But it's only 15 minutes left, y'all. So we'll try to get to as much people as possible. But it all depends on you. So let's go to the next person. Let's go to I think it's a Skype caller. Somebody calling from Skype. Okay. Can you hear me? Somebody calling from Skype. Going once, Skype caller. Going twice, Skype caller. All right, I'm going to have to move on. Let's go to 530-434. You're live in air.
Well, greetings. This is Brother B.A. out of Sacramento. Shalom, Sal. How you doing, Vocab Malone? I don't know you, but I know Faithful and company, and I got a chance to talk with those brothers, and they seem decent brothers. But I would like to ask you a question concerning your book.
Real quick, can I say one positive thing? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I've heard a lot of your debates, and you always do a solid job. So I do know who you are. You always come solid and come prepared. So I've heard your debates. I think you do well.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I would like to ask you, and like I said, I'm a follower of Christ. And my thing is that when I hear Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites, I would say, what is it? What's the end game? What's the overall objective of you writing this book? And who are you in particular writing this book to and for?
Excellent question. The main audience is the serious, curious Christian lay reader. The serious and curious Christian lay reader. So a person who has an interest in this topic has a basic background in Bible, hopefully. You know what I'm saying? So mainly that adult Christian reader. And they pick this up, and they have a big gap in their knowledge. They don't know anything about what they're looking at. And so I've used this metaphor a few times. There's a dark room, and the room is an unknown to them, and it's the beliefs of the Hebrew Israelite religion. And this book is like a little flashlight to help them navigate, so they don't run into the big objects. There's no light in the room. There's no light switch. That'll come later. You know, like there'll be more light shed on things later on, but there is no light switch. This is just a flashlight to navigate in an unknown space. That's what it is. So it's a primer mainly for Christians. However, there is one chapter that I do hope people who would say they are Hebrew Israelites would read. It's specifically chapter 5, which is called Relevant Biblical Passages. That's the main place where I kind of hope people would look at and interact with because of the scriptures in it. And it's one of the longer chapters because there's a lot of Bible verses in it.
Okay. No, yeah, that's all. I just wanted to, and then my thing is that so that I get a better understanding of your point and why you wrote your book and who was it for, because like I said, when I first heard it, I received it in a sense from a negative perspective because I'm like, okay, you got Barack Obama according to the Windward Doctor, he's a Hamite. And to me, it seemed like there was a whole bunch of negativity. But after hearing you and after hearing you make the few of your points, I can most definitely understand. So is it available digital, or I would have to get it physically?
No, it's digital. On the bookpatch.com, there is a digital version, which is, of course, cheaper, and there's also no shipping and handling. I try to make everything super cheap. Basically, I got to cover the cost of the book, but there's a digital version right there, and I think it's $9.95. So it's the ebook is $9.95. So it's at the bookpatch.com. If you just put thebookpatch.com and then just put like Vocab Malone, you'll be able to find it pretty quickly. But I believe there's a quick address which is tinyurl.com/Vocab Malone book. That's a quicker way to get to the bookpatch.com website. But yeah, it is available digitally.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'll be this is my last little bit, Sal. I'm gonna yield the mic, but I'm gonna say this. And I'm gonna get the book Vocab, and I'm gonna most definitely read it, examine it. Most high willing, maybe me, you, and a few others, we can have a conversation and look at it from a critical analysis of it. Just to have an open, honest conversation about the direction. Because there's one thing to tell me about. I mean, it's one thing you gave me a quick review, but I may see something different as I actually read it. So just from brother to brother, I would like to sit back and if you got the opportunity, maybe you can set it up with Faithful and a few others, and we can sit down and really talk about it and do a critical analysis and see, is this book going to be a help or is it going to be more of a smear? And I'm not saying that you're intentionally smearing. I'm saying because a lot of people think that you intentionally, or do I know? A lot of people think that you are intentionally smearing African Americans. So, and I want to sit back and say that I don't entirely believe that. I think that your motives are honest, because one West, anybody that teaches racism, that's devilish. The gospel does not teach racism. I mean that is most definitely heresy. But at the same time, there are individuals who actually think you are maliciously attacking blacks. So I would just like to read it for myself, and then maybe one day we can we can sit down and actually examine and have a conversation about it.
And I'm down for that. And I'm down for that. And like I said, I've always appreciated your debates. You always do well, even when people aren't being very respectful to you. I've heard you really maintain composure. So props on all that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely. Also, I second that. Once I read the book, Vocab, I want to definitely bring you back on, if possible, sometime in November, and maybe we're going to add some people and, just really, jump right into the book in itself, But, of course,
I'm down.
Okay, not a problem.
I mentioned like 20 different Debate Talk for You episodes that people should listen to, and some of the footnotes also have different Debate Talk for You debates. So like Debate Talk for You is featured relatively prominently as you go through the book in a couple key places, because there's a lot of good information and resources there. So, yeah. I don't have your picture or anything like that in it, Sal. Your picture's not in there, but
I definitely got to read the book now. Most definitely. All right, so let's go to the next call. We have like 7 minutes left in the air, family, man. All right, so let's get to the next call. Let's go to 716-541. You're live in air.
Thank you for taking my call, Sal. I would like to ask the gentleman, now you promoting the book, and during the dialogue, I was hearing you say that, just because a person says this or that, that don't make them this or that. And I'd like to ask you, does the Bible say that Israel was God's chosen people?
Yeah, the Bible does say that, yes.
Okay. Now, I thought you were going to be proving that that's not the case, but you didn't do that tonight. Now,
no.
Does your book cover the Middle Ages?
No, I don't think there's anything in the Middle Ages about. Not that I can remember. No, I don't think I have that in there at all. No.
Oh well, you know that's very important, because that's who the people are in question that's here in America. I mean, and you can read it in the Bible. Now, if the Most High said that Israel is their chosen people, then you look in His Word, right, to find out what's fact and what's fiction, right? You don't do secular. And I agree with you 100% with the one West and the other ones. I mean, but you cannot, just dismiss nationality because you ran into a couple of bad apples. Now, I'm a believer, but you know what I mean? I'm a Christian Hebrew. Now, you can read in the Bible, and it tells you that Judah was brought here in the late, I want to say 1500s, early 1800s. They were brought here on slave ships, cargo.
Are you referring to Deuteronomy 28:68? Is that what you're referring to?
No, 29 and 35.
29 and 35.
The name Judah is.
Sorry, just a second. There is no verse 35 of Deuteronomy 29. There is no.
29 and 35 Genesis. I'm sorry, Genesis.
Oh, you're saying Genesis 29 says that Israelites were brought to America?
No, I said it tells you. It says that Judah was the fourth born son of Jacob. His name means Yahweh's praise. That's what it says, right?
Okay,
now,
I'm in Genesis 29 now.
Okay, from history point of view now, from what I understand from history, Judah, Benjamin, along with Levi, were brought here. That's why I asked you about the Middle Ages, because that was
asking you your evidence for that.
That was the Byzantine Empire, and that's who the black Negroes were, and that was in North America and Spain.
You're saying that, in your estimation, only 3 of the tribes were brought to these continental United States? That's what you're saying?
Definitely, and the Bible also says so too, because I know it is 12 tribes, but from what I read in Numbers, I forget what chapter it says.
What's the verse? What's the verse that speaks of the United States in the Bible?
It said America.
America. Where does it say that in the Bible? Americas.
History says it.
Okay, but you said you were standing on the Bible to make this claim that 3 of the 12 tribes were brought to the United States, and I'm asking you where in the Bible you're getting that from.
I do the Bible, and I also do history.
Okay, well, what's the best Bible verse that gives evidence to your claim, though? Is there a good Bible verse that gives evidence to your claim?
Okay, Psalm 78, 2 and 4. It says, I will open my mouth in the parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from the children, showing to the generation to come the praise of the Lord.
Okay, so actually, wouldn't that verse show that the folks who were kidnapped in the transatlantic slave trade and came to the shores of the United States are not Israelites? Because
I'm not
let me finish this, please.
Slave trade. I ain't going near.
Please let me. I had a point to make. I just, if I could finish it real quick, which is you said, we will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord. Establish a testimony in Jacob.
Okay,
that they should make them known to their children. Hold on, just let me finish the point.
The reason why I'm saying that, because
please let me finish this point. I'm almost done. I'm almost done with this point, which is verse 4 and 5 say, we will tell our children and our children's children, so we'll know who we are and what God has done. But the Igbo and the Bantu did not claim to be Hebrew Israelites, and they didn't tell these kinds of stories. They told stories of griot.
I guess if they still in Africa, sir, they weren't scattered abroad. So I guess they don't apply.
Oh, so do you? But the transatlantic slave trade consisted of ripping people out of West Africa.
This is what I'm talking about right here. I don't think this is the trans. I don't know what year was the transatlantic slave trade, and then we go from there.
They say it was maybe 1500s, maybe sometimes they'll go back to the 1400s, but usually 16th century, 17th century. So wait, you're saying that Israelites came?
History says between the late 1500s and the early 1800s, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were brought over here in America on a slave cargo ship.
But what history says that? What history says that exactly?
You left Middle Ages out the book, sir. You can't be, you know what I mean, really.
Well, no, the way you asked the question initially, but yeah, I do have stuff about the transatlantic slave trade in the book, and I do have stuff about King James, who was kind of right after that. So I do have some stuff. I didn't really understand what you're asking, but what I'm asking, what about history says?
Okay, but what are you saying? Why are you saying that it's not possible?
I didn't say it wasn't possible. See, that's a different kind of claim. It's possible that somebody migrated from the Middle East down to the west coast of Africa and got snatched up. But the thing is, here's what we actually see, a multiple different type of variety of indigenous African ethnicities, all who claimed to be part of the land and understood themselves to be part of the land, had traditions and cultures often which stretched back into the land itself. And they also had, there's some similarities between the various ethnic groups and some of the tribes and some of the customs. So there's some aspects of being united as a people, even when you would have some separation at certain points. That is not what we would think if these people were actually Hebrew or Israelites would look like. It looks like they're Africans who lived on the west coast of Africa. I just don't want to rewrite history and claim Africans living on the west coast of Africa were actually Hebrew Israelites. Let them be who they are, because it's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. The west coast of Africa is actually a beautiful, wonderful, good place, and by God's grace, it's a place where Christianity has been established firmly. And that's why I can sing songs to the Lamb with my Nigerian and Ghanaian brothers and sisters who are not embarrassed to be Nigerian and Ghanaian, and they don't want to act like there's some other ethnic group. I think that's a good thing. I just don't want to rewrite history is all.
All right, we at the 11 o'clock hour, man. We only got time for one more question. And after that, we're going to pretty much get some last words and wrap it up. But I appreciate all the callers out there. You know, I can't get to everybody, but I appreciate all the callers out there that actually called in and let their voice be heard. But let's go to one more caller. Let's see. Let's go to 443-619. You're live in there.
Hey, how you guys doing? Shalom, everybody. What's happening, Sal? Okay, this is our Soul in Black, by the way, brothers. I just wanted to ask the author, you said that you are a Christian. You keep talking about Christianity and the establishment of Christianity. And you use Christianity basically as your leverage for theology. Am I correct?
Well, hopefully it's drawn from the Bible, but yes.
Okay. My question is, why are you a Christian in the first place?
I believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, and prior to that, paid for my sins on the cross.
Okay. I understand. That's what people are supposed to believe in the Messiah are supposed to say, but when I'm saying, why are you a Christian, I mean Christianity in itself as a religion. When the Messiah, our high priest, was in the order of Melchizedek, and so were his disciples and his apostles. So why are you promoting Christianity, which is something that was concocted and put up and stolen from the actual order? Why would you actually promote that and use that as a basis of your theology to determine whether or not one is Hebrew or not to be Hebrew? Okay, first off, and going off your research, which is flawed. I'm just trying to understand because when somebody's going to be able to... How are you
defining Christianity? How are you I think we're defining Christianity differently, because what you just said sounds foreign to me. How do you define Christianity then?
I define Christianity as a knockoff, phony religion. That's
well,
I
don't subscribe to that then. Okay.
Of course you do.
Of
course you do.
Christianity.
Of
Okay.
course you do.
So
because,
that's how
let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, here's the question. What is the Father's will that people should be following according to the Bible? We should be in now?
Can you elaborate a little bit? I'm not sure what you mean. What should we be in now?
Okay. Have you ever read Psalms 110?
Yeah.
Okay. What does it say in Psalms 110 about our Messiah?
Are you talking about the very beginning of the psalm specifically? The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool? Or what are you referring to?
Keep going. Keep going.
The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power, and the beauties of holiness from the womb of the morning thou hast the dew of thy youth. The Lord hath sworn, and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord at thy right hand shall...
Stop.
Okay.
Stop right there. Our Messiah is in the order of Melchizedek. He is not a Christian, neither were his followers. They were actually in the order of Melchizedek. That's what you have in the book of Hebrews described and revealed to you. So when I'm asking you, why are you a Christian? Why are you outside of the will of the Father, trying to define people who are inside the will of the Father?
Well, I don't agree that I'm outside the will of the Father. Matthew 12:50, Jesus says, whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So that's how we have the family of God.
Exactly.
But
whoever does the will of the Father. The Father has already declared. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The Father has already declared the priesthood and the actual church that is actually going to exist. If you're not in that, you're in something else. You're outside the Father's will. So I'm trying to understand how you would claim to be a Christian, which the Father did not claim. The Father never said that, neither did the Messiah say that, and neither did the apostles. The apostles revealed to the people about Christianity and also the traits and the problems that they had, because if you look at your history of Christianity, Christianity was a pagan religion from the get-go. It was mixed even at that. They didn't even have the same doctrines that were online.
Okay, 1 Peter 4:16, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed. So you just said the apostles don't say Christian, and yet I turned to 1 Peter 4. Okay, so 1 Peter 4, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed. It sounds like you're trying to want me to be ashamed, but I'm not ashamed.
No, what I'm telling you is when they spoke in the language, in case you don't understand this, when they spoke, when they were talking about it, they were talking about something they understood in the order. That was the actual order of Melchizedek. You guys there's only three scriptures that actually even indicate about Christianity. Two of them, Gentiles claiming what they were called. They were calling us who are in the order. You're not in the order.
Let me ask you a question. This is just kind of rambling. Do you believe that Paul, one of the ruler that he was speaking to in Acts chapter 26, did he want him to become a Christian or not? Agrippa. Did he want Agrippa to become a Christian?
No. He wanted him to be.
And Agrippa, now let me read it. Acts 26, 28, 29. And Agrippa said to Paul, in a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian? The answer, and Paul said, whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become such as I am. Now, you just said he didn't, but the Bible says he did.
No, the Bible didn't say that. You said that. Let me explain this.
So why is Paul answering
wait. Let me finish the point. The guy made a statement to Paul. Paul didn't claim himself as being a Christian. He said that you would be as I am. Okay? He never said, go ahead, be just like. In other words, he would have said, yeah, be like a Christian. He would have just said yes. But he didn't just say yes. He said, I want you to be as I am, which is what? In the order of Melchizedek. He has nothing to do with Christianity.
Hold on. You got to stop right there. You just pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Where does it say you need to be in the order of Melchizedek? He did not. That's called pulling a rabbit out of a hat. He said, I want to God that you be like me. So you're pulling rabbits out of a hat. And if you want to talk about the order of Melchizedek,
I'm not pulling a rabbit.
I'm not pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And look at the new covenant.
No. Listen, I'm not pulling a rabbit out of a hat because all you have to do is read the book of Hebrews. The book of Hebrews tells you, and he says, we were teaching you in the order of Melchizedek. They were not teaching you Christianity, period. The whole book of Hebrews is referring to the order and the high priest in that particular priesthood and order. You can't be talking about a king and a priest mixed in for Christianity because Christianity didn't have that. This was prior to Christianity. This was the order of Melchizedek, which was way before Christianity even showed up. Okay, the Father took us back.
Hold on. You're saying a lot of stuff that's out of order because the book of Hebrews was written after Paul's ministry right there. Anyway, and so like that concept of the Melchizedek priesthood is not really laid out anywhere else in the detail it is except for Hebrews. But Paul is doing this defense about 15 to 20 years before Hebrews was probably written. So I don't really understand why you're retrojecting something on the text and pulling a rabbit out of the hat.
I'm not retrojecting anything. No, I'm not. I'm not pulling anything out of the hat because I took you to Psalms to show you what the Father's will is for His Son. And the Messiah said, go and make disciples. Like he told them, so I'm going to teach you, and you're going to go make disciples of men. And what? And what exactly? He wasn't teaching them to be disciples in Judaism. He wasn't teaching them to be disciples in Christianity. Christianity wasn't around. He went back to the original priesthood that came from the very beginning in the scriptures that Abraham dealt with back in Genesis 14. He brought you back to the original priesthood. Nothing new, actually going back to the original. That's what the Messiah kept doing, bringing us back to the very beginning, the original. That's what you should be teaching them. If you're going to be talking to people and
hold on,
criticizing...
let's stop there, please. You're saying he brought them back to the original, but the very place that you mentioned in Hebrews chapter 7, 8, and 9, it talks about the new covenant because the old covenant wasn't enough, And it actually says it was a better covenant. And then Hebrews says that aspects of the covenant had actually been disannulled and set aside. So how is he just taking them back to the old?
Listen, the covenant is new. The priesthood is old. That's what you're crisscrossing it. I'm showing you he brought you back as the Messiah said he would be, like the Father said he would be. He would be a priest in the order of Melchizedek. That's what he did. He didn't come in Christianity. He didn't walk in any other priesthood. He didn't teach his disciples in any other priesthood. For you guys to say Christianity is the way you guys critique is because you guys are in the wrong place in the first place. According to the scripture, Abraham went and met who in Genesis 14? The priest of the order of Melchizedek. That's who he met. The Messiah would come back in that same way. That's how the Messiah would arrive. He would be showing up in the same priesthood. That's how Abraham knew it. That's why it was even brought up in the book of Hebrews. All the other things that were said in the book of Hebrews, when they even break it down, they even tell you that they're talking about the order of Melchizedek all the way from the very beginning. So I'm trying to understand how, and even though it even says for those who are following, we will be what? Kings and priests. The only way you can do that is be in the order of Melchizedek. You can't do it in anything else. Christianity doesn't have that.
That kings and priests line is also from 1 Peter 4, where Peter says
it goes all the way back to Zechariah 6. It goes, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Peter refers to it, that kings and priests concept in 1 Peter in the same book where he says, don't be ashamed if you suffer as a Christian. So, I mean, it's right there.
That's not even talking about the even same thing. Suffering as a Christian means, let me put it this way. Christians had a different belief system. Christians that suffered, they tried to follow in the way outside of the actual priesthood. That's even what Paul was telling you about people running around you, trying to tell you this and break this down and tell you all these particular things. Paul was trying to clean all that stuff up because they were getting confused by people who were thinking that they're actually in the true priesthood when they weren't. That's what Paul was breaking down. That's what Peter had to eventually deal with. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. You don't even have to go there because before you even get there, you have to go back to the Old Testament where it tells you what the priesthood's going to be. You got actually Zechariah chapter 6 that tells you. You have Psalms 110 that tells you, and you even see it again, starting all the way back, going to Genesis chapter 14, when the blessing was even given to Abraham. But nothing breaks loose from it. It's all in link. Christianity, first of all, Christianity, whenever you go through it, show me how that the apostles taught the people to be Christians. You can't find that anywhere. But I can show you in the scriptures. Actually, I can show you in the scriptures that they were taught to be in the order. That's why I said read the book of Hebrews. It tells you right off the bat.
So you said that Paul was warning people in the Bible about Christians, but actually he warns about people who practice and teach some of the same things that Hebrew Israelites teach. Let me show you from Colossians chapter 2 that no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in
First of all,
hold on, let me read this.
I agree with you. I agree.
I'm going to tell you before you or Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the bodies of Christ. And then verse down 21 it says, touch not, taste not, handle not, which are all to perish what they're using after the commandments and doctrines of men. I mean, that sounds like some of the Hebrew Israelites are running too, though. That's who he's warning about. He's not warning about people who are trying to be Christ-like, because that's what Christianity means.
Well, that's one segment of it, but he also has parts when he has the Judaizers coming back. He has the other type of people who are trying to give you the Gnostics. Hold on. You have the Gnostics who were trying to get there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. Paul was trying to block him and shield him from. But the bottom line was because they were new in the faith and they were being discipled, by the way, because that's the actual teaching. You become a believer and you're supposed to learn. You get discipled and you go do the same thing. Okay? That's how it's supposed to be laid out. Okay? So I have no problems with that. But the problem with it is Christianity ain't it. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. You can go, all you have to do, if you really believe, you really believe in the scriptures, you believe in the Father, go back, read from the book of Genesis 14, go to Psalms 110, Zechariah 6:12, and go on from there all the way through. And you're going to see even actually Revelation 1, I think it's 5 and 7 or something like that. You can even see, it even breaks it down. It tells you that they're going to be kings and priests. There's only one thing that matches. There's nothing else that matches. Christianity don't match, never will, never has. Okay,
so what do you call yourself? If you don't call yourself a Christian.
No, I call myself a priest in the order. Yes, because it says so.
A priest in the order.
Priest in the order of Melchizedek, because that's where my Messiah is. I serve my Messiah, who's the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. If you do anything else, you're outside the Father's will.
Who ordained you as a priest in the order of Melchizedek? Who ordained you to be that?
When you get born from above, as the Messiah told you, baptizing them, discipling in the Scriptures, they are priests in the order. That's both male and female.
Well, you just pulled a rabbit out of the hat again.
That's where
because
no, I'm not pulling a rabbit out of my hat.
20 does not say anything about Melchizedek. I don't know why you're inserting this stuff into the text because you got a certain angle that you want to portray. But when I flip to Matthew 18 through 20, I don't see anything about Melchizedek. So that's why I say you pulled a rabbit out of the hat.
How am I pulling a rabbit out of my hat? If the Father said that this is what his Son is going to be in, which he did come in, he came in the priest in the order, even the Pharisees and everybody else recognized him as so. Okay? That's why they were even shocked by his power and authority. But he has to be, according to Zechariah 6:12, he has to be in the priesthood and a king. He has to be both. And the only way to do that is one thing.
Not you.
Hold on. No, you too. No, you too. No. You too. Go to Revelation. I'm going to pull it up here. Revelation chapter 1. It even tells you too. That's why I'm trying to get you to understand. So if you guys are doing
we
something
are a nation of priests. I agree with that. If your basic claim is saying that we need to talk about the priesthood of all believers, I agree with that because I'm not a Roman Catholic. I don't believe there's priests over us. I believe that there's a such thing called the priesthood of the believers. But the idea that you can't call yourself a Christian or that it's after the order of Melchizedek, that's where the strangeness comes in because Christ is the one who's after the order of Melchizedek, and he's in that order forever. And there's no system by which priests after Melchizedek are inaugurating other priests after the order, and that's not anything that Jesus should go around doing.
It's not you inaugurating. They are being brought into. See, you don't understand. This is what I'm trying to tell you. You don't understand the kingdom because Messiah said the first thing you're supposed to be ministering in the gospel of the kingdom. You guys keep talking about the Messiah. The Messiah is important, no doubt. But the Messiah even told you the first thing he taught when he came out and started ministering and preaching was the gospel of the kingdom. And since you don't understand the gospel of the kingdom, you're going to come crossed off with all kinds of crazy things. You're not going to come to the right conclusion. But if you get to where the Father's will is, right from that point forward, you know what priesthood you're supposed to be in, you know what you're supposed to be ministering to, and you actually can decipher and break down the prophecies because you've been properly discipled. Christianity Christianity does none of those things. You know why I can tell that? You know why I can tell that? Because I used to be a minister in so-called Christianity.
Okay.
Christianity claims pastorships, evangelists, none of those are their titles because they're not in the order. They have to be in the order of Melchizedek to get any of those.
Let me ask you then, what do you do, you, as a priest? What is your function or role as a priest?
The same thing that the Messiah told us to do. The Great Commission, go out to minister to the people, to go minister the gospel, tell them what the truth is, break down the Spirit, lay hands on the people and baptize them so I can disciple them or others can disciple them who are in the order so they can go do the same thing over and over and over again. That's what he said about make sure the gospel is preached around the world. But it has to be done according to his priesthood in his church, his actual church. And Christianity ain't never been that. Not even from the very first day. It never started out as Christ's church and never will be. And that's scriptural.
All right. Well, I think we had a good conversation. I don't know if Desal, do you want this to continue on or?
We're going to pretty much wrap it up. We're going to pretty much get some last words. And once again, I appreciate the family out there for calling in. Of course, everybody knows if you follow the brand, the show will be on iTunes in the podcast section. That's right, we're on iTunes. Of course, we're on Blog Talk Radio. And, of course, this show will also be on the YouTube page. We appreciate the family out there that called in and listened to the show and sharing it on their personal pages. Vocab Malone, your last words. Okay.
Hey, man, a lot of great calls today. And thank you, Sal, for, facilitating and letting me come on and handling it well. And, I think there's a lot of great calls. I do not claim that I always handle everything perfectly. There is an aspect of, keeping things moving and all that because of the certain format that I think is important in this format. But I appreciated people's questions and all of that. And even my friend Chris Harris, he sent me a message after he got off the phone and he said some good things that I think were helpful, you know, and you know, we can talk, him and I, like, it's all good. So I appreciate it. Now, you know, some of the discussion was about the book, some of it wasn't, but I understand people's questions nonetheless, and so I appreciated that. And hopefully we can have a discussion about some of the content more in the future once it's more out there. But I think people did get a general idea of the content, so they're kind of getting the flavor and the idea and the approach and you know, my stated purpose and all that stuff. But again, I think there were some excellent questions, and I love how there's such a variety of perspectives. You know, it wasn't just one way, one view, and it wasn't just you know, I think it's good people get to see, like, some of the diversity within the larger framework or umbrella of what people might call Hebrew Israelism, because I don't think there was anyone who would have maybe identified as having one West theology that I could think of today, really in any meaningful way. So that's kind of interesting. But I think it was a good conversation nonetheless, and I appreciate it, man. So that's all I got to say. And just so people know, real quick, I usually don't want to do this, Sal, but I do want to tell people, originally this was scheduled to be what is Reformed theology, because a lot of folks, you know, encounter me, and I feel like they don't really know exactly, you know, what I believe as a Christian, and I can lay it out as something called Reformed theology, and I was going to kind of get into that, explain it, especially we're on the 500th anniversary of the Reformation here, you know, 2017 to 1517, especially October 31st when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Thesis. That was what we had originally scheduled, but then the book came out, and Sal said, well, I've got, you know, a lot of queries on this. Would you mind switching? And I said, okay, that makes sense. So I didn't even originally be like, oh, yo, Sal, I got to promote this book. Let's do this thing. It was just sort of a natural, organic thing, and so I said, okay, it makes sense to switch it to that. I still actually do sometimes want to talk about that issue. I think it's important. But nonetheless, I'm glad we did it because it did show that there was a need and a desire for people to, you know, have their voice be heard and ask questions. And I look forward to tomorrow as well on Debate Talk for You, when we're going to talk to the Shut 'Em Down crew, myself and Adam Coleman, fellow Shield Squad member, and talk about this passage of Deuteronomy 28. So I think that'll be an engaging, enlightening discussion as well. So again, Sal, thanks for the platform, and thanks for facilitating, man.
All right, man. I appreciate you calling in and taking all those questions. There's a lot of questions out there for the family. We appreciate y'all. You know, it's all about the people, man. You know, we love it. We love it getting questions from everybody out there. And just letting y'all know, family, listen, it's at the end of the month, so you know what that means. You know, Blog Talk Radio is going to need their monthly fees, and I need y'all help. So if you want to donate to keep the show on the air for next month, all you got to do is go to PayPal, www.paypal.com. And then the email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. That'll ensure that we have a show for next month. So, family, if you appreciate the show, you like the content, you want to help us out, stay on the air, go to paypal.com and use the email debatetalk4u@gmail.com. You know, Blog Talk ain't free for me, but it's free for you. So we appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all tune in tomorrow. See you next time, and God bless.